Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. We have a full house tonight. We have Robbie Rip Rain, Steve Wildman Monrotis, and a blast from the past we ain't seen in a month of Sunday. Carrie Pocket Doc Davis is back in the house. Boys, how y'all doing tonight?
Wyatt,
you guys doing all right?
Rolling.
Wyatt, I'm rolling. I've been missing that.
Yep. We just not the same without you. And, saying I'm having this much fun with my pants on just doesn't quite cut it. It's getting old.
Little TMI there, Steve. Little TMI.
Hey, pants are not required. DA had me sign a contract and an NDA, and pants wasn't mentioned.
There was no pants mentioned in the contract.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So, boys, how have you been?
Very good.
I'm glad it's the weekend. Let's just put it that way.
We had a Rex Goodrum said, DA new subscriber here. Rex, thank you for your subscription, and thank you for joining the Ex MachiNation. We're really happy to have you, folks. Before we get started, is something I kind of a note keeping thing. I've been telling Noah I've been trying to remember to say, and my memory sucks. So I finally remembered. We've been looking at the word's not demographics that I'm looking for. Analytics. We've been looking at the channel analytics, and it looks like close to half of our viewers of our shows aren't subscribed to the channel. So, folks, if you're a reoccurring viewer but you're not subscribed to the channel, or if you have been subscribed to the channel in the past, make sure you still are, because YouTube has a way of unsubscribing people mysteriously from time to time. So please double check and hit that like, share, and subscribe button, because then you'll get informed of any time we go live, and we would certainly love the numbers. And we are this close, like 5 away from breaking 7,500 subs. And another milestone, this is our 250th episode.
Huzzah.
I thought the government would shut us down at 100.
I'm surprised it lasted that long. Back in those days, it was me and Steve and 3 very dedicated people that put up with us.
It was back in the 2 assholes no waiting mode, wasn't it?
Yeah. By hour 2, sobriety was an optional thing.
Sometimes it still is.
Sometimes.
Well, we decided as the show progressed that starting the show sober was negotiable.
True. Now, Noah is playing bartender as well as moderator tonight, so I'm hoping he shows up with my beverage of choice here shortly.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Boys, tonight, I know we've kind of touched on this subject in the past, and really, to be honest, although it's we're seeing more and more shows talk about this subject, I really, I'm not trying to toot our own horn or anything. Oh, yeah, screw it. Yes, I am. We kind of pioneered this theory. We were some of the first ones talking about it. That Teddy Roosevelt not only knew about cryptids, but had a huge hand in our government's current policy toward them.
And on a kind of related note, before we get into this too far, DA, I have made the observation that usually 5 days to a week after we do a topic, a certain very large non-cryptid YouTube channel tends to post a video on our same topic. It's happened the last 3 weeks in a row. The
no
one I emailed
kidding.
You about.
It ain't so.
Yeah,
really?
The Y-Files. The Y-Files. They did Atlantis. They did Atlantis 4 days after you did, and they did last week's topic. It dropped 24 hours after yours. Now that was probably in the pipe, rendering or whatever. So that can't be blamed. But it's like, and there was a third one. I was like, okay, so maybe great minds think alike, and so do we, or something.
And also, there's a woman on TikTok called the Map Lady. She is now running with our thing about the overlay maps. Have you seen it, Doc?
I synced it.
Well,
I was like, that looks familiar.
What I'm hoping is that particular channel. I've got nothing but but good to say about it. I'm not throwing shade at all. I love the channel. It's one of my favorites. But it is a huge channel, millions of subscribers channel. And he has a very good habit. If he finds something from another content creator, he calls them out on the show. So awesome. I'm hoping one of these days that, quite selfishly, that he likes some of our shit and we get called out. Because getting called out by a big show like that,
yeah,
your subs will suddenly start to increase dramatically.
Well, after Josh Nanocchio called us out, we had a pretty big surge. But you get a channel with millions of subs, yeah, that could be pretty huge for the channel. Ryan Barber said, "Do you think Teddy Roosevelt believed in cryptids before the Bowman incident?" I really don't know for sure if he knew about them prior to the Bowman incident. However, and someone asked what book that was. But actually Teddy wrote several things over the years, but the one we're primarily going to focus on is a book called The Wilderness Hunter. It's still available on Amazon. It was written by Teddy Roosevelt. And in one particular story known as the Bowman incident, when you start looking at the comparisons, I think it makes a great deal of sense. Now, one thing a lot of people don't realize is that prior to the Bowman incident, in fact, a year before, another trapper had been killed in that same valley. And the Native Americans were saying, there's a creature up there, don't go up there. And Bowman and his partner are like, no, we're as much like people do today, except for, me, Robbie, Doc, and Steve. They're like, there's a killer monster in that woods. Boys, grab the cameras.
Let's go.
Let's go.
But the Bowman incident, it marks one of the first documented incidents of a cryptid killing a person. Now, there are tales that go back from Native Americans and stuff of cryptids killing people, but this was one of the first that was actually put into print. And when you look at the inconsistencies there, you start really kind of doing the math that Bowman actually was Teddy Roosevelt. One, Teddy Roosevelt still had political aspirations. He had not run for office at the time that book was written. So he didn't want anybody, going, oh, you think you saw a monster up there in the woods, and it affecting his political career. Two, Bowman's first name was never given, and no one ever came forward claiming to be Bowman. Three, the level of detail. Robbie, Doc, Steve, and I all know Ozarks hillbillies and people that live out in the sticks all across the world. People, whether they're from here in the United States or out in the outbacks of Australia, we've talked to people from lots of different places. And one thing we gather that's fairly common among country folk is you don't get a whole lot of detail in a story. They'll tell you they'll tell you the basics, and then they'll tell you the story. They're not going to tell you how they built their lean-to. They're not going to tell you what kind of traps they were running. They're not going to give you all of this sidereal information. Yet, the Bowman incident is filled with it. It is very, very clear about this particular information. The way they put the traps, how they laid the traps out. Just some old trapper would not have thought to even put all of that in the information. He would have said, we ran our trap lines up in this valley and this is what happened. But so either Teddy Roosevelt completely added all those details in, or he knew them because he was there. What do you boys think?
100% he was there.
Well, and from what I have read of the story, Roosevelt was pretty big on details. He was a very detail-oriented individual. And so he had all these specific details, and then we only get Bowman's last name.
All we got is his last name. And it's funny you should mention the name Bowman. There's just a little detail about that I was supposed to tell you. Oh, yeah. When Teddy Roosevelt went to Harvard, he was on the sculling team. He was the front position on the skull team. Do you know what the front position on a skull team is called?
Ooh, I know that.
It's called a Bowman.
Interesting. The plot thickens.
That was kind of his nickname because he was on the competitive rowing team. The Bowman. He was a Bowman.
Very interesting.
A clue.
Yeah, it's not spelled the same way, but calling someone Bowman with no first name, again, nobody ever came forward. And flash forward after Teddy Roosevelt wins the presidency, one of the first things he does is creates the National Park Service, cordoning off, what is it, Robbie? 88 million square miles, something like that, of national forest land.
Dang.
Yeah, so million. Was he protecting the cryptids from us, or was he protecting us from the cryptids?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it could be a little of both.
Or was he keeping them isolated so we could hunt them?
It's probably a good thing Miss Naoma's not here, because the next part I'm going to toss in would just have her giggling like a schoolgirl.
Well, Steve's going to giggle at it too.
Steve's going to giggle at it too.
I'm a 14-year-old with a bad back. That's what we're dealing with here. Yeah.
While Teddy Roosevelt was part of the Rough Riders, you guys will be familiar that he. This is where downward mobility isn't always a bad thing. He was the Secretary of the Navy, and he stepped down to lead a unit of Rough Riders. That was in Cuba, correct? Up San Juan Hill?
Yep.
Okay. He stepped down to lead the Rough Riders. One of the Rough Riders was a guy from the middle of the Ozarks, just across the Arkansas border, about 100 miles from where I'm sitting. He was an Arkansas boy, born and bred. And he would tell Teddy Roosevelt stories from the Ozarks. And the thing that most compelled Teddy Roosevelt was the tales of the Ozarks Howler. And he promised Teddy, we get out of this, we finish this, I'll take you back and I'll show you. Teddy Roosevelt went with this guy back to the Ozarks and supposedly had numerous Ozarks Howler sightings. In fact, he was so taken by it, one, he set aside the Ozark National Forest, which covers, I think it's almost 2 million acres, just for the Ozark Howler. And he became the president of a secret society that is in place even today to defend the Howler. It's called the Concatenated Order of the Hoo-Hoo. I know Miss Naomi would be cracking up right now, but for some reason, back in the 1800s, the Ozark Howler's nickname was the Hoo-Hoo. People would say, have you seen it? Have you seen this? Have you seen that? But you can Google the Concatenated Order of the Hoo-Hoo. It's still active. It's active on like 4 or 5 continents, and it's an exclusive secret society that only allows people that work somehow involved with the timber industry. And you can't petition to join. You have to be invited. So, and here's the funny part about that secret society. At one point, Teddy Roosevelt was the president of it, and so was Woodrow Wilson. 2 U.S. presidents were president of a secret society for defending a cryptid.
Very interesting.
It is.
Dwayne Melton just became a member. That's awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
we is 4 subscribers away from 7,500.
We are close.
There you are. Thanks, Dwayne. We appreciate you, man. It's interesting. You have to wonder how they came up with the name. Don't they use like an owl in their logo, right, or something like that?
No, it's a cat.
It's a cat. Okay.
Yeah, thus the name Concatenated. But the weird thing is you get conflicting descriptions of the Howler. Some people describe it as being like a large bear, but more canine looking, and others people describe it as a cat. The one thing that descriptions have in common is the horns on the back of its head, horns that look more like a ram's horn than like an antlers or anything like that.
Yeah, started in 1892, I believe.
And if you've got a cryptid with a secret society built around it, to me that just says there's a reason.
Well, and check this out too, DA. What year was the Bowman incident recorded?
The book Wilderness Hunter, I believe, was released in, I want to say 1885. I'll have to look it up.
Okay. Did he have an 1892 incident as well?
He had multiple incidents.
Yeah, maybe when he was chasing the damn howler.
Yeah.
The adolescent to be is still amused that an order of the Hoo-Hoo was founded by a bunch of men who sell wood.
Well, and who?
Wilderness Hunter was first published in 1893.
Okay. And the Who Order was started in 92?
1892, yeah. Interesting.
It documents his time as a young, but documents his time in exploits in North Dakota as a ranch hand and in his time as a Western frontiersman.
And to me, though, it seems like, you know how much money the logging industry brings in for those companies. So if you wanted to be able to kind of control what areas things like that stick to or stay in, or so you wouldn't have to worry, because what's going to happen if people find out, just like that owl that they found out,
the spotted owl,
endangered spotted owl, that how much money did that cost the logging industry?
Millions.
So for them to be in control of something that would, and yeah, that's a big chunk of land, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to the entire United States. So if you set aside that, that big a tract, that's great, but that also gives the rest of the country, or gives them free reign on the rest of the country. So if it ever is found out, oh well, we got this national habitat set aside for them. They're good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a damage control and plausible deniability.
Yeah.
See, it's pretty interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Well, I've been a proponent of this theory for the last year or so. When I first started, I think it was closer to 2 years ago that I started talking about it. But when I found that out about him being the Bowman on his rowing team, I was like, wow, that just it's just another little piece of evidence that just kind of fits. It's a piece of the puzzle. Now, it's not a smoking gun, but it certainly gives credence that he would use the name Bowman, since it was his nickname on the sculling team.
All right. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's most likely a duck, but it could be a swan.
Big Gabe says, didn't Roosevelt make a large area of wilderness protected? Yeah, he created the National Park Service.
That's what we're talking about, 88 million square acres.
88 million square acres.
What year did he do that? What year did he say?
Right after that was one of his first executive orders he signed in after he became president.
And he was president just before World War I, wasn't he?
I don't know what year he actually.
I think he was like 2 presidents before Wilson, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. I don't think I've taken a government test in 30 years.
Looks like we just hit 7,500, DA.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Roosevelt was first elected to the presidential election no, that's Franklin Roosevelt. Oh, sorry, I looked up the wrong one.
1901, according to Glenn Dennison.
So he was president from 1901 through 1909. So that's when the National Park Service was created.
Okay. He was 2 before Wilson. I can't believe I remembered that.
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson was also president of the Concatenated Order of the Hoo-Hoo.
No.
Isn't that wild? And the
cool.
stated purpose of that secret society is the preservation and protection of the Ozarks Howler.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
But it's like we say, the truth is always stranger than fiction. And it's
definitely
that's mind blowing that a sitting U.S. president would say, hey, I'm going to set aside this much land for this quote unquote cryptid.
No kidding. I do want to say a big shout out, or give a big shout out and thank you to everybody that made 7,500 possible and our 250th episode. Thank you guys so much. You guys have made this journey possible. Without you guys, we would just be 4 idiots still getting drunk together and nobody paying attention to them. But thank you guys so much for making this possible.
I think attending this show is kind of like watching a car wreck. There's more than curiosity about what might happen next.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen. Most of the time, neither do we.
Nope.
Yay!
Which is why we go off topic as much as we do.
Well, sometimes those rabbit holes we go down when we're not on topic sometimes become just as important as the ones we are on.
We might as well call ourselves the old circus train because we always derail just like the old circus trains did.
Yeah, releasing the wild man of Borneo.
Yeah, the wild men of Borneo just always get out.
All two of them every time. Some of our best content has been some of the stuff we've ad-libbed. It's stuff that's produced in the moment. We have a very.
You mean we've had a plan all along, Steve?
Well, look like a guy.
There was a plan.
I get a quick email. It half it doesn't make sense. I have to have Robbie break it down for me so I understand the words. Yeah, it's
Open Color. Thank you for becoming a member, man.
But I think a lot of it too is we have some very entertaining and intelligent people that watch the show, and in those moments when we completely derail, sometimes they're more connected with us. They interact with us more because they don't feel like they're interrupting the script, and then some pretty good content comes out of that.
Script, Doc, I didn't get a script. Did you get a script?
There's script.
You guys got a script?
I always thought we ad-libbed everything.
Yeah, and made do.
We mostly do.
And made it up.
We go ad-libbing. We ad-lib until a certain unnamed satellite takes us down for a short period of time.
Pretty much.
Hold your tongue.
Somebody's posted the venerated Order of the Wild Hunt. Casey Calloway.
There we go.
Grab his comment here.
Do you guys think Roosevelt was the first president to know about cryptids, or do you think others before him knew?
As long as reports have gone back, I think it's in the list of shit he was briefed on. That packet that all the new presidents get. Well, because there's been stories back hundreds of years.
It could be that, but it also could be that it was just one of them things that, like Steve said, they got briefed on, but maybe he was the first one to ever actually have that contact. So he was like, well, hell, we're going to do something about it then.
Yeah, because maybe he was. Was he was one of the first presidents to have ventured out in the old frontier, as it were, up in the mountains and everything. So because he was, as everybody knows anything about his life, he was an avid hunter and outdoorsman. So not many other guys Andrew Jackson, hell, I don't think he ever got any further past Louisiana. You know what I mean? Yeah. Abraham Lincoln, so he was one of the first ones to go out west. So
Roosevelt was the definition of a badass.
Oh, he was. He absolutely was, man. He was so sick with asthma growing up. He was puny and sickly, but he got into exercise and boxing. He was a pretty tough pugilist.
Yeah, he challenged himself to push himself farther every day. Yeah. And that's how he beat being a sickly kid.
Yeah.
He could barely go outside as a small child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he got shot and spoke for hours with a bullet in him.
Yeah.
He's like,
the dude survived an assassination attempt on the way to deliver a speech, delivered the speech, and then went to the hospital to have the bullet removed.
That's the epitome of a badass right there, for sure.
I go back to what I've said before is, when presidents come in, one of the first things they want to do is a lot of times erase whatever the previous, especially if there's heat amongst them. They want to. That's something that's never, ever, ever been challenged by any other president. Even some of the ones you would think nowadays would be like, oh, well, let's let's for the Green Deal's sake, let's get rid of these logging industries and this thing like that, and That's just something that's never been challenged, and to me, that's amazing in itself.
Right.
Yeah.
We could have had other presidents that knew about them, heard about them. Hell, a lot of these guys were country folks from Appalachia and everything like that. So they could have heard about all these critters too. But I think maybe he was the first one to document it, as it were.
Well, and
he certainly took steps to mitigate it.
Yeah.
I don't think, and I don't think any other president, if they knew about it, I don't think any other president made any steps other than possibly in 1865, a certain group of U.S. Marshals put together.
Yeah, it's true. Sure.
In some journals, maybe.
In some journals.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
D says, "I want Steve Lilly shirts." Well, you'll have to talk to Cam about those. That's his character. I can't do Steve Lilly stuff without Cam's permission. But yeah, look for more Steve Lilly stuff in the future. Oh, and for those of you who are members of the Patreon community, and who have already read Demons Part 1, the first short story, Demons 2, I just finished it. It's a little over 20,000 words, which really puts it into novella territory. It's not even really technically a short story. The short stories kind of top out around 12,000 words. So Demons Part 2 is a novella. Should have it up on the Patreon for the Patreon members to be able to read in the next couple of days. It's also going to be included in a compilation of short stories that should be dropping later this month.
Excellent.
Sweet.
Excellent.
Yes.
Oh, and I'm also proceeding well with the current Dark Frontiers book as well. It's just over 30,000 words now, and I'm just going to shake some things up. There's going to be some characters that are changed when this is done, and we'll leave it at that.
The frustrating thing about reading your stuff, since I don't sadly have the time to do much of the alpha reading anymore, is that it used to be when you started reading your stuff, you knew that certain characters had plot armor. Certain people are just going to be fine because they're key integral to the story. And then a few books ago, it became clear that the timeline is malleable, and we might have parallel timelines that go down, like when Wiley shows up. And I was like, it happens.
Casey Calloway says, "Where can I read Demons Part 1? Demons Part 1 right now is only available on the Patreon community. And it's been up for a while. If you're a member of the Patreon, you can read Demons Part 1 as well as a number of other short stories. But Demons Part 1 and Part 2 will both be part of the short story compilation that I'm finishing up now. I have another short story that I'm wrapping up about dogman in New Mexico in the early 80s. And when that one's done, then I should be able to release the new compilation." Oops, I didn't mean to take that down. Josh Dalton, the national parks is only presidential idea that has never been removed but added to over the years. As for script, I only know a prediction for medical whiskey. There we go.
I use it for medicinal purposes. Unfortunately, I'm in very poor health.
Miss Lene says, "You're not going to kill anybody off, are you?" Well, I can't promise anything.
Oh my God!
Can't promise anything.
George R.R. Martin was Pittsburgh.
But
more not to run says, "I'm waiting for more audiobooks." I just talked to Cam the other day, and he's finally caught up with his workload. And he said he should be having a bunch more audio coming soon. Casey Calloway says, "Will you put that on YouTube?" Yeah, eventually Cam will probably do it. If I don't decide to just narrate the Demons Part 1 and 2 myself. But we'll see. But I'm sure those will be available on YouTube because honestly, we do better on YouTube than we do on Amazon Audible.
Hey Doc, when he kills a character, they're only mostly dead. They're not all dead. They're just mostly dead.
It's not all the way dead.
Just mostly.
Mostly dead is still partly alive.
See, I was thinking more of the Monty Python thing. When they're bleeding on the floor of a Black Hawk, and the medics are working on him. I'm not dead yet. I'm getting better.
I'm not dead yet.
Just been a flesh wound.
Roxanne Delgado says, "I read that the first sightings in North America were from European settlers in 1700 to 1750. Bigfoot was stealing food from settlers. Doesn't surprise me."
Well, the first sightings obviously were from the First Nation tribes because there was cave paintings of them all over the place.
True. John Abraham just became a member. Hey, man, thank you for joining. That is awesome. Glenn Dannison had a question I tried to get to earlier, but I got away from it. It says, when are your books going to be made into films? Dude, I wish I knew. I would love that so much. In fact, I would insist that these idiots get to play themselves. I don't want to be in front of the camera. I'm a writer. I'm not an actor. I'm not a writer, but I would love to see, a movie made of some of these, or all of them. That would just be fantastic. Or even like a well done HBO series or a Netflix series or something like that. I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, that would be badass.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, it would be funny to think about.
Can you see a director trying to direct you, Doc? You two idiots, shut up and do
That would be funny.
What?
Hey, but no, can you imagine who they would cast as us, though? Because, I mean, let's be honest, real actors would be more marketable than us three dumbasses. But
we've actually
for yourself, sweetheart.
No better you than you, Steve.
That's right.
He had a request. He said, "Brother, please read a little tonight, please. Always a special treat." Before we end the show, I'll probably read a little bit from Demons Part 1, because Demon Parts 2 wouldn't make much sense if you haven't read Part 1. So I'll probably read a page or so from Demons Part 1 before we call it a night.
I just love the opening scene in that, honestly. I like it's a lot more intimate scene than most of the prologues the stories have. Just a couple of people sitting down having a conversation, so it's pretty awesome.
He wasn't even looking.
It's impossible not get it.
It's like,
ooh, you're so funny, Noah. Yeah, but you know what? I'm calling up to shoot you in the kneecaps, fool.
Noah, next time he's here, he might have to stand on the couch and hit you in the face.
That's right. Give me a stool, damn it.
I'm gonna kick you in the knees.
Yeah, he's just gonna roll up and just be like, "Hey, pick me up so I can punch you in the face."
I'm just glad that Peter Dinklage is still working. So we at least have the person we need if that doesn't roll out.
Y'all are real funny to one of you's bleeding. Real funny.
Doc on a horse reminds me of that John Wayne line from was it First True Grit, when he looked over, "How long you people from Texas been mounted on sheep?"
I remember that.
You Texas brush popper.
I ain't never met one of you boys from Texas that ain't drank water out of a hoof print.
I love it.
Great movie.
Sorry. See, the side rail started. The derail started.
Turkey train has entered the building.
Oh, it's amazing.
Well, Dalton brought up a good point, though, that like we were saying, Teddy Roosevelt's creation of the National Park Service has never been challenged, but it has been added to. There have been other parks added and even expanded over the years,
which in itself is unprecedented.
Right. Look at the parks that were added in just Alaska alone. And coincidentally, Alaska is where some of the most violent Sasquatch encounter stories come out of. You've got the Alaskan Triangle, where, what was it, like 66,000 people have gone missing in the Alaskan Triangle in the last 30 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And they created one of our largest national parks in Denali.
Yeah. I don't think I would want to screw with any kind of cryptid that could live at the foothills of Denali. Mm-hmm. That is, I don't possess the testicular fortitude to compete with that mammal.
Now, Angie and I went up we stayed some cabin up there. We were probably about 2 hours from Denali, and we were out in the woods, and man, I was strapped. I mean, because I knew all the stuff we had talked about, on the show and everything. I was like, dude, I want to make, because everything up there is really big and it wants to kill you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like we said, the further north you go, the more dangerous the wildlife becomes.
Absolutely.
How dangerous moose are. Moose kill people in Alaska all the time.
Oh, yeah. They'll stomp your guts out, man.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely, get a hold of a friend who has like a 457 Kazoo or a Smith & Wesson 500. Make sure I knew exactly how many rounds it has, so I have 4 for the bear and 1 for myself when it don't work.
Speaking of all things Alaska, Wednesday night, Fred Roll will be joining us on the show.
Oh, excellent. He's always a treat.
He'll be giving us some updates from Alaska and telling us some of his most recent exploits. It's going to be a great night. So make sure you guys mark your calendars and set your reminders, because having Fred back is going to be awesome.
Yep.
I'll be on vacation this next week, and my parents, I may actually, if their new internet service is better than the old one, I might be able to watch the show.
That would be awesome. Brooks says in that town they abandoned up there in Alaska. Yeah, you're talking about Port Chatham, Alaska. That is a documented case of an entire town being abandoned. A town with a cannery that was making tons of money.
And they all up in RUNNOFT.
Yep. They said, to hell with this.
The manager of the plant is like,
yeah.
You would not do
this.
So here's the question. Well, Roosevelt, after the book Wilderness Hunter was published, he still hunted in the West a lot. And I firmly believe that he was, he knew about cryptids when he created the National Park Service. Do you think he ever hunted one?
I would think he did. I mean,
this is a guy that prided himself on taking down big game. I mean, he hunted Cape buffalo and gorillas in Africa. Well,
there's at that museum that you and I went to, DA. There's a Kodiak bear that he shot. Mm-hmm. That's stuffed taxidermy there. The dude went after a Kodiak bear intentionally.
Yeah, I would agree with Steve on that. I would concur with that and say, yeah, he probably did, because if you read the account and everything, gauging by the wounds, the horrific wounds that Bowman's friend had, I mean, those were some pretty gnarly wounds. And so I don't think he held the creature maybe in the regard that some people do nowadays. Somehow we talk about it, being more hominid, more human than ape, but I think maybe not knowing what we know now about the things, he saw those wounds and treated it like he would that Kodiak. Hey, this is a man eater. This is something that's going to kill us. Apex predator.
Well, yeah. Also, look at conservation in that time. Conservation of animals. How they studied one was by bringing one in. They didn't have DNA technology. Yeah. They didn't have the ability to use telephoto lenses to study animals from a long distance. They studied one's anatomy by killing a few of them and bringing them in.
Yeah, they do necropsies on them. That's how they learned.
So, what we're saying is it could have been a dual purpose thing of, hey, I'm going to take revenge on this thing for killing my friend, and I'm going to get some for scientific purposes.
Yeah, because he was a very scientific fellow. He was a very scientific dude.
Yeah, he pioneered the conservation movement in the U.S. Now, here's another question for you, and this is more book related than real world related. If Teddy Roosevelt founded the National Park Service to create a buffer area where these cryptids could live without, constantly snacking on the local population, do you think it's possible that the origins of the team like the Wild Hunt might also be in Teddy Roosevelt?
Why not? Could he have used some of his Rough Rider buddies?
I was just about to say, he led the Rough Riders.
The Rough Riders turned into the first cryptid hunting team.
Yeah, they evolved.
Glenn 777 made a comment here that I don't want to get away from us here. People have commented many times about how anthropomorphic teddy bears look, like how human they look, and how much more human they are than bears.
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
I never thought of that before.
About that
Glenn, that's a great point.
And when I saw Gwen's comment there, I was like that dude for the History Channel with the aliens. I was like, it suddenly hit. I was like
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, dude.
It makes a huge amount of sense. Thanks for the post, Gwen.
Mike over at Abnormal Investigation says, I think he used a lot of aliases to hunt them down and track them. I think you're probably right. And Bowman may have been one of those aliases. I mean, the guy had political aspirations, but he hadn't run for office yet. The last thing he wanted to do is, tell people I hunt monsters.
Right.
Or I saw a monster.
Yeah, Casey Calloway has a good one. He says,
that would be a great plot line.
That would be a great plot line. And it would.
Well, I am doing some stories, some short stories and stuff that are more on the origins of the Wild Hunt team. In fact, I've got plans for one. I haven't decided if it's going to be a novella or a full-length novel, but it's going to be about the original team when Jay Matoska and Gideon. Where the hell did that come from? Where Jay Matoska and Gideon were part of the original Wild Hunt team formed during Vietnam. Went to Portlock, Alaska, and
that's awesome.
That's going to happen sometime very soon. I've got plans for that one already.
Very nice.
Josh Dalton says, "Da, look at the makeup of the Rough Riders." You're right. Most of those guys were frontiersmen. They were hardened hunters.
Well, I mean, like General just pointed out, I mean, if you really look at those guys, they were pioneers of special forces groups.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
they were your first level operators.
You had trackers, you had skilled hunters, you had guys. He created a group that operates very much like a modern special forces unit. You had guys like Robbie who are trained to identify and follow tracks. You had guys who were like Doc, who are specialized not only in putting pint-sized combat boot to ass, but also but also being able to treat wounds. The combat medic was.
Actually have a big foot. It gives me more stability.
He's like one of those toys my boys used to play with, the Rescue Heroes. It's a regular sized figure with enormous feet.
Oh, see, I was thinking of those ones you used to fill with air that had the weights at the bottom, and you hit them and they just come back up.
Yeah,
he's a weeble wobble.
Doc's a weeble.
I am. Yeah, but no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail that. But what you're saying is like, yeah, you got dudes who have specialized jobs
right
on this team, which is very much the creation of an operational detachment alpha. You just created an A team, not like the A team dudes who shoot mini 14s can't hit a bull in the butt with a bass fiddle, but you're talking about you just created an ODA.
Robert D says, teddy bears, are they named after Teddy? Yes, Teddy Roosevelt. The modern teddy bear is named after Teddy Roosevelt.
What if it's a Teddy Bigfoot?
Well,
that's pretty awesome.
Well, the Lakota, one of their words for Bigfoot was bear man.
Yeah.
They referred to it as the bear man.
We could have had patios.
Think about how you go about, like Doc said, filling that team out. PJs, SEALs, Delta, all those guys, they have to do every single thing that an entire platoon would do, but squad size.
And everybody is cross-trained in those specialities so that if one dude goes down, they got redundancy.
Yep.
Right. And that,
weren't the SEALs the first ones to actually cross-train their medics to actually use weapons, or was that?
That was SF. That was the Green Berets who just predated because Kennedy started them in '62, and the SEALs were in like '63, I believe.
But either way,
we had Army Rangers, as far back as World War II and beyond.
Oh, yeah. And Rogers Rangers dating back to the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, so, Rogers Rangers.
The guerrilla warfare.
Also, a book works about them as well.
Yeah.
Think about Francis Marion in South Carolina, the Swamp Fox, guerrilla warfare. How much of the Redcoats did he harass by using special forces tactics? So stuff like that goes back. So this is not
Rogers Rangers. They pioneered that kind of attack. The British would march out in the field and line up and get ready to sight in and shoot at the enemy that wasn't there. These guys were in the woods hid.
Yeah. I mean, just like during the little misunderstanding between the states, they they had quite a bit of guerrilla warfare going on then with their sharpshooters. You know, because you had the rebel
northern aggression.
Yeah, the war of northern aggression. You had the rebel sharpshooters up with their Whitworth rifles imported from England, and they were taking dudes out at 700, 800 yards.
Which is unheard of with rifle technology that day.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's an incredible shot.
There were
bifocals. I don't know I could hit a 700-meter target today.
Yeah, a black powder rifle. You know, I mean, it had rifling in it. It wasn't a smoothbore. It wasn't a brown best, but it was. Yeah, that's pretty freaking amazing. So.
Oh yeah, I don't think I could hit a 700-meter shot with a scope.
Doc, got a really good question here for you. Larry Berlin says, Doc, if Declan or Teddy had carried an IFAK in the 1800s, what would have consisted of?
Good question, man. You know, it honestly depends on what apothecary background they had. If they're going more the native route, or if they're going more the conventional Western medicine route. You'd have had some bold bandages in there, just bowl strips of muslin cloth, just white cotton. You'd have had some, probably some salicylic acid, some white willow bark, which has got your ASA, which is your salicylic acid aspirin derivative there for painkiller. They might have had some opium or morphine or laudanum or any of those opiates for pain control. As far as tourniquets, if they were so inclined, they'd have had a petit tourniquet, which is a little turn screw tourniquet developed by a French surgeon that was used very prevalently in the Civil War. So something like that, they would have had just a lot of bleeding control stuff.
Boiled horsehair for suture line because silk was hard to come by.
Yeah, boiled horsehair for suturing. Their instruments would have been very, very austere. Chloroform, maybe, you know, I mean, and if we're talking an IFAK versus a whole little doctor's M9 bag or something like that, yeah, there's not a whole lot they would have had. Bold bandages and some petit tourniquets. That's about it, man.
Going to remove a limb, hold him down, boys.
Yeah, I mean,
when you
had morphine and everything else.
When you worked in the emergency room, Doc, did you ever end up using laudanum on a patient?
I've used dilaudid. But
I've actually used laudanum.
I've never used laudanum.
So I don't know they even still had laudanum.
Oh yeah, they label it tincture of opium, but yeah, it's laudanum. If you have a patient that has, especially like shortcut syndrome, you know, they've had some kind of a, you know, an ostomy or whatever, so they're missing things. If they have diarrhea that is refractory to, you know, all the other treatments, you know, Lamodal and Emotive, one of these things like this, we give them tincture of laudanum or tincture of opium laudanum. And apparently it tastes as bad as they show it on television. You have the patients drink it. If they got an ostomy, they put it in the ostomy. Obviously, I never tried it, but the patient I would give it to, like, it is absolutely horrible. It is absolutely horrible. And but it'll lock them up like Fort Knox, and you can finally fix the problem. But when they first dispersed it, I was like, tincture of opium. I'm like, what the hell is this, the 1900s? And they're like, no, we use it for refractory diarrhea. I'm like, holy crap, that is cool.
Yeah, pardon the pun, but yeah, it's funny. Those of y'all who don't know, a tincture is a medication that is made with alcohol. So a tincture is like an alcohol. It's a spirituous elixir. And then
I was going to say it's a concentrated elixir, right? Isn't that the kind of distinction?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a syrup where the elixir is more the consistency of like whiskey.
Yep, exactly. And they use it because it locks your bowel motility up. People who were hooked on laudanum back in the day couldn't poop. So there's your bit of 1800s medicine for you. Hope that answers your question in a long roundabout way, man.
That's what White's first wife, Maddie, was hooked on, right?
Yep,
she actually did die of a laudanum overdose. Yeah.
Dalton's got a good point. He says, this is a stretch here, but hear me out. Teddy Roosevelt spearheaded the Second Hague Convention. What if there was closed door meetings on monster hunting?
Oh, that would be cool. Now that's
not outside international stuff.
Well, we're not the only continent that's got these things.
Yeah. They're not.
What if Teddy was the force behind bringing, at least governments to taking these things seriously.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
I'm sure everybody's got a similar unit, except maybe the French.
The French have already pre-surrendered.
Yeah. Did y'all do that old Google thing a couple years ago where you typed into Google French victories and it said, "Do you mean French surrenderings?"
Oh my
French
God!
defeats.
French defeats. Yeah, it was actually a thing. You could actually Google French victories and it would say, "Did you mean French defeats?"
Well, there was a joke floating around that said they had to outlaw fireworks at Euro Disney because the last big fireworks display they had, an entire French garrison surrendered to a busload of German tourists.
Well, there was also a running joke that when Eiffel drew up the plans for the Eiffel Tower, they deliberately made it wide enough that an entire company could walk under it, so they'd have room for the opposing forces.
Dang.
Yeah. What was it? Was it you or Doc DA that used to make the joke that the French equivalent of the MRE had a white linen napkin so you could surrender
after they ate?
That's good. Well, they definitely ain't the Legionnaires, that's for sure, because the Legionnaires are some bad mofos.
Oh yeah, God, but there's foreign. The French Foreign Legion.
Right. They're some bad mofos. All I know.
Apparently, they don't like it when you point out that the winner of the first Tour de France was the 3rd Panzer Division either.
I can't.
Thanks.
I'm going to behave. Yeah, Doc's got the point.
Doc just stepped out of his chair.
All right, let me get my high seat, my high chair.
Did you see last week's show, Doc? Everybody was missing you. And so they tried to get me to summon you. And I pulled the cork off and you didn't show up. And
we're like, oh, man.
Man, the first time we did that was comedy gold, man. That was.
Yeah, it was.
That was true gold.
And it happened like 4 times.
It was not even planned.
Unscripted.
It was completely random. That was hysterical.
Yeah.
Robert D's called me out. He's pointing out that there's so little here that I would finish it off and Doc wouldn't come for it anyway.
I know.
Robert D, I resent that. I do have some bottles that still have whiskey in them for now.
I've seen them.
I seen them. I see them both.
I don't know. I got a bottle of Woodford here that could probably get Doc here. We're not supposed to show that stuff on the air. But YouTube gets
I was holding up a random square bottle.
We're 53 minutes.
YouTube gets a little pithy with alcohol.
We're 53 minutes in. They probably won't watch this far in, would they?
Speaking of 50 minutes in, I'll be right back.
All right, Doc.
He must go wee.
Oh, we got 192 people watching, folks. Again, the analytics are showing that only just over half of our viewers are actually subscribed to the channel. So please take a moment to make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It would mean the world to us, and to help continue to grow the channel. And make sure you hit that bell icon so you get notified anytime we go live, which is usually Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Central.
Like, share, and
subscribe. The problem with us doing this show is you've got 4 middle-aged men who probably have enlarged prostates that are drinking alcohol. It doesn't make it a good scene for anybody. And half of them are on diuretics.
You're not wrong.
It was a BPH and congestive heart failure. Yay!
What is it? Gabriel Glacier says, they tell me not to eat tacos, so you'll be healthy, but I won't be happy. Well, what make you happy? Eating tacos.
Yeah.
What'll make you happy? Drinking beer.
Well, one of my doctors always used to say, when the hospital started using Press Ganey hotel surveys, for their quote unquote customer satisfaction, the doctor said, and I'll never forget it, he goes, the happiest patients don't necessarily have the best outcomes. And then to that, I'm like, well, we'll die happy.
Absolutely. Josh Dalton mentioned a minute ago that one of Teddy's advisors was coming back on the Titanic. So,
Oops.
what do you think he was bringing back?
Well, never mind. I started to say something that's probably way out of taste.
I'm a little concerned that it tripped the trigger there. We set the sensitivity on our auto stop is pretty low.
Yep. It was probably going to be a little rough around the edges. What I was going to say, but I'm sure the four of you knew, or the three of you knew what I was going to say. Four counting Noah.
Yep.
It's rather interesting. When we were talking about that day that some kind of streaming network picks up the rights to some of DA's books and the fantasy casting and everything. The only thing that would irritate me is Hollywood would do some kind of a damn scene where Steve was mixing drinks like Tom Cruise in a cocktail, and that would just piss me off. I realized I wouldn't be playing the character, but it would still piss me off.
They'd probably make me like 6 feet tall.
Yeah, you're being played by Alan Richardson.
Joe
Joe
Pesci.
I'm picturing Steve Buscemi playing me. I'm going to introduce you to the South Boston. It's great.
Doc, you're right.
If Josh Lucas was shorter, he could play me because he's from the South.
I was thinking like Matthew McConaughey. He's about the right age now. I mean, height-wise, it's off, but if they could make Tom Cruise freaking Reacher, we could have McConaughey play you.
That would be funny.
I'm holding out for Keanu Reeves personally. Hey, a guy can hope, right?
I can hope.
I think Shia LaBeouf could play me. He's good. He's a little crazy.
He's a little bit out there.
I mean, he did a good job in Lawless. He had a good Southern accent in Lawless.
Can you see Keanu Reeves and Shia LaBeouf reacting with each other like me and you?
Oh my God.
Oh,
he almost failed to just Johnny Galecki for you, Doc.
Yeah. How about Giovanni Ribisi? He'd be funny.
There you go. That would be very funny. That'd be a good deep cut callback, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think he did an amazing job on that. In all seriousness, now who would make a good you? Now that you mentioned that, is the dude that played the sniper Jackson in Saving Private Ryan.
Barry Pepper.
Barry Pepper. His whole delivery of that, this whole exercise is a serious misallocation of our nation's resources. When he's talking about giving him a sniper rifle and Adolf Hitler would go down. Yeah, his speech patterns, his delivery, it would be totally you.
Naoma suggests Peter Dinklage for Doc.
I already read that one. That was mean.
Thanks, Naoma.
Hey.
I'm picturing Peter Dinklage with a really thick South accent.
That's only because the guy that played Willow is too old.
I appreciate Arkansas Hog. I don't see Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman?
Playing me.
Mm-mm.
My luck, I'll get David Schwimmer.
Okay, Griff, Adam Sandler for Doc. That's funny. But here's the thing, man. They got to do it. They've got to be able to do a convincing Southern accent. That's not – some of these dudes on the movies and TV just – their Southern accent is.
They can't do it. They can't do it.
If they got Adam Sandler for you, you know who they get for me? Kevin James.
That would be it.
Well, okay. Well, that just went out the window. That's
not money right there.
Oh.
I'm picturing like me getting stuff with like Jason Lee.
Yeah.
From Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Now, here's something funny, though, man. If people have read the Lee Child books, the Reacher books, the Reacher that is on Amazon, the Alan Richardson dude, he's more in line in what the books are. I mean, Tom Cruise did a good job. Don't get me wrong. But physically,
Tom Cruise played the character well. He just he didn't look the part.
Physically, he was not Reacher. like Alan Richardson is definitely, because I see him when I read the books. You know what I mean?
If the people on Netflix ever get their head out of their butts and start actually producing some of Jonathan Mayberry stuff, I see Alan Richardson playing Joe Ledger.
Yeah, that'd be good.
He's got the build. He's got the
Okay,
and
now,
he could definitely play some of.
I could definitely see Irish dude Colin
Farrell.
Colin Farrell play Logue.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can easily see that.
In fact,
that's kind of the image I had in my head when I created the character.
When I first read him, that's who I pictured in my head. Da.
Yeah, he's a huge smartass. I mean, so he'd be perfect.
Oh yeah.
And he could.
Testament, you need to hush. Wee man playing Doc. You need to hush. That's just ugly, and I abhor ugliness.
And somebody said David Cross for me, the guy from Men in Black, the one that's killed the Fly right before Vincent D'Onofrio killed him.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
He was also the bad guy in Alvin and the Chipmunks, actually.
Yeah,
I don't know.
See,
I would be happy with Chris Pratt.
I wouldn't be offended, but I can totally see somebody like Russell Crowe playing Steve.
Honestly, I think Chris Pratt would make a good Daniel Clark.
He would. Honestly, if Ray Park could pull off an American accent, he could do a good Daniel Clark because he's got that wiry kind of badassery. But I don't know if he can do an American accent.
But
the reason he didn't deliver his own lines as Darth Maul because he couldn't get his accent was so bad.
You see, Ray Park, is he English or Australian? I know who he played, but
I think he's English. I could be wrong.
Let me ask a Google machine.
No, I think
I go to the magic box.
He's a British actor. Raymond Park's a British actor and martial artist and stuntman. He's 49 years old.
Well, then I know who he could play.
He's 5'9".
He could play our British guy. I'm trying to remember his. I got so many freaking characters. It's hard to keep them all their names straight in my head. Yeah, Davidson.
Oh, you're
Warrant Officer Davidson.
Oh, I love Davidson.
There's an origin behind Davidson. I just haven't revealed it yet.
Greg House, Lucas Black. I said Lucas Black could be me, man, because he's from Alabama. He's got a great Southern accent.
There you go.
What was the name of the actor that played the Gray Man?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. I'd like to see him in there somewhere.
Oh, he'd be good, man. He'd be good. Ryan Gosling could be a good Declan.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Him as a good Declan, man.
The guy that played the comedian on Watchmen, I cannot think of his name to save my butt. He was the dad, played Dad Winchester on Supernatural. He's Negan in Walking Dead.
And just letting y'all know, yes, this is part of the Teddy Roosevelt conversation. We just
derailed it.
Other things a little bit.
So, what is his name?
Ewan McGregor for DA.
Now, I saw Ewan McGregor as Declan, honestly.
Yeah. I think it's what they're meaning.
Ewan's going to have to sound a lot less Scottish and a lot more Irish.
He could probably do that.
Oh, Tom Hardy for Doc. Hardy's not a real tall guy.
And Tom Hardy did a very convincing Southern accent in Lawless as well.
Tom Hardy is a
I've
method
met Tom Hardy. He's a nice dude, man.
When he takes on a role, he is the role, much like Val Kilmer was.
Yeah.
I had to ask Rachel. Jeffrey Morgan is who you're thinking of that played Negan.
Jeffrey Morgan. I'd like to have Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Gideon.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I love his delivery. He's got that slow, deep baritone delivery. I could totally see Gideon like that. I mean, Gideon's lived thousands of years. He ain't in a hurry to get anywhere. He's going to have a very slow, every word means something kind of.
And Sam Elliott as Command Sergeant Major Hammond.
Yes, dear Lord. Yes.
I have said that from the first time we started talking about that.
Now, who's going to be Margolin?
Oh, God. I want to say Ryan Reynolds, but he's like the go-to smartass. But it's got to be somebody that's that big of a smartass.
I mean, honestly, Giovanni Ribisi would do good at it. His whole delivery is that same kind of stuff.
Him and also Ryan Gosling. If you watch Gray Man, he was kind of a consummate smartass. So he could deadpan the smartassery right in there. So he could be pretty good.
Yeah,
I can see that.
I mean, he's a little old for the part, but the guy that played Dean Winchester on Supernatural.
Fact. Yeah.
He's got that smartass delivery. What is his name, love? To play Dean on Supernatural. Jensen Ackles.
Jensen Ackles.
I could see him as Dan Clark too.
No.
I almost said Hanson Jackals, but I was like, that's not it. So
my recall is not what it used to be. I've had COVID brain since like November.
Eric Chesterman says Mel Gibson is Sanders. All the running jokes about Lieutenant Colonel Saunders.
That'd be some good stuff.
If he was playing the character, if he was doing the voice from We Were Soldiers, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Clint Anderson says Sean Connery to play me. Well, that would be great if he was still alive, but and a considerable amount older than me.
Yes, he is.
I was going to say, can he do any other accent than his Scottish, Welsh, whatever it is?
He doesn't have to.
Yeah, he's Sean Connery.
Like a guy from
it's like for Hunt for Red October. Yeah, he doesn't learn Russian. You hire an entire Scottish crew to make him look good.
And in the original Highlander, you had Sean Connery, who was a Scotsman, playing a Spaniard in a film.
Who's actually an Egyptian.
It's set in Scotland, where the main actor was actually, I think he was French. He was French, Belgium, playing a Scotsman.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the hell?
Well, like he's like a guy from Alabama is like, excuse me, can I have some sweet tea, please? Like it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I'm just saying. Yeah, Robert D. We are so off the side of the mountain. I mean, they're calling in a demo crew to clear the landslide right now. So
I was gonna say they've already sent out search and rescue. There's a dog with a
popping flares.
With a little thing of Italian whiskey trying to find me.
Pew pew.
So for special effects, which category do you see? Let's say the dogmen looking. Do you think they look more like the movie The Howling? Do you think they look more like
American Werewolf in London?
That would be pretty terrifying.
And I think Greg Nicotero needs to be he needs to be in charge of the special effects. Greg Nicotero from The Walking Dead definitely.
I want him and the guy that did the original Aliens.
Oh yeah,
the xenomorphs.
Yeah,
because I would want them to be practical effects.
Ooh, Eric Testerman has a good one. Gerard Butler as Gideon.
He would be a great Gideon.
That would work.
He would.
Someone else said Stephen Lang. I'm not sure I know who Stephen Lang. Oh, Ant-Man. Okay.
Yeah. No, Stephen Lang was Stephen Lang. Yeah, he was also Billy Clanton. He was Ike Clanton in Tombstone.
Ike Clanton. Okay. Tombstone.
Ike Clanton.
Yeah, he was Ike.
Yeah, it might work.
And he was the general or colonel or whatever in Avatar. He's been in all kinds of stuff. He's a character actor.
There you go. General Dalton is going to be played by Daniel Craig.
There we go. Miss Lene says, "What about the Dogman and Dog Soldiers?" That was one of the ones I was thinking of too. Great effect.
Oh yeah, that dude.
I would want the creature effects. I would want the creature effects to be top notch. I'd want the guys that did the special effects for Primeval to do the Bigfoot creatures.
Yeah. Dude, and 175 people have stuck around to listen to us talk about this. We appreciate y'all.
Yeah, y'all are the best.
We just want to stop right now and say we appreciate y'all.
We completely abandoned the original topic of the show and
we're
headed off down a side corridor where there's no end in sight.
And no map, no GPS. We're just winging it, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
we derailed and don't have a plan on how to get back. Judy Davis says, which character is Robbie? Jed And then Robbie himself in the Wild Hunt books.
Cole Hauser.
Robert Downey Jr.'s Margot.
Cole Hauser.
Cole Hauser for Robbie. There we go. I'm with it.
Yep.
I mean, you already Rip. I mean,
E.J. Testerman's got a good one. The guy who played Rip in Yellowstone.
That's
Cole Hauser
talking about.
Oh, well, Patty says Robert Downey Jr. is Margolin.
He
was young.
He's got the smart ass down, but Margolin I've always seen as being a pretty big dude.
Sam
in the military, if you're
guy.
that big of a smart ass, you've got to have you've got to have the wherewithal to back it up.
Oh, see, I picture him as kind of squirrely. Yeah, I was
Brian,
thinking like
that, but I think Sam Elliott's
5'9", $160, something like that.
Well, he was a ranger, so he was he's built like a runner.
Everybody needs to read a DA book.
I approve this message.
Darcy's Wiki says, what about The Rock? He can be a smart ass. The Rock, though, I don't know who he's got the right look for.
Kelly Marie, we just talked about Stephen Lane.
No.
Stephen
Nope,
Lane.
The Rock messes up everything he's in.
Now, if he were still alive and obviously much younger, I totally saw somebody like Charlton Heston playing Saunders.
He'd have to be a lot younger, but we're talking dream casting any actor in their prime.
Oh yeah, right. I'm thinking like Charlton Heston, circa Planet of the Apes. The Ten Commandments, kind of.
Griff.
Have you guys seen HBO's Spartacus?
Yep.
Yeah.
The guy that plays Spartacus would make a good Margolin.
You talk about the original guy that died or the new guy?
I didn't know the original guy died. I haven't seen much of it.
He died in like season 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, he died of cancer at the end of season 2.
Some kind of aggressive, crazy ass cancer he died from. He was young.
Yeah.
Super young.
Greg House says, what about the female characters? Ooh, some of those would be tough to cast.
I am thinking, since we don't really, you'd be casting against race or casting against type, but Michelle Rodriguez is Valkyrie. I just picture her having that kind of attitude.
That kind of attitude, but Valkyrie's a blonde-headed Swede.
Right.
Catherine
Winnick. Blonde hair, blue eyes.
Catherine Winnick.
Blue eyes.
Catherine Winnick as Valkyrie.
I have thought of her as Valkyrie. That's all.
I can see it.
And the first time I read it, Catherine Winnick.
That's actually who I kind of had, because I've been watching Vikings for a while. She was kind of who I envisioned when I created the character of Valkyrie.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
The actress you mentioned, Steve, what was her name again? Michelle Rodriguez.
Oh, Michelle Rodriguez
for Amanda Clark.
Bro,
that would work. That would work.
Yeah, dude, I could see that
kind of
all day.
That kind of badassery attitude. Obviously.
Miss Naomi says Margot Robbie. My first choice would be Catherine Winnick, but Margot Robbie as Valkyrie would be pretty awesome too.
Yeah,
she could pull it off, and she could do the physicality of the role.
Yeah, so if Jason Statham could do a good Southern accent, he could be me. As Miss Lene. If he could talk hillbilly, Jason Statham for Doc.
Unfortunately, Jason Statham is the same in every role.
So what you're saying is, he's bleeding now. I need to put a tourniquet on his leg right now. That's not going to happen because he shot at me. And that was my first ever Jason Statham.
That was good. That was really good.
Thank you.
And then weird forcing the fact that he's from Louisiana would make it even better.
He's not. I'm from Mississippi.
I thought you were born in Louisiana and moved to Mississippi.
You bite your tongue, young man.
I apologize. No
I was
offense
born
intended.
in Natchez, Mississippi, right on the Mississippi River, where coincidentally,
medicine man
Jim Bowie had his first knife fight.
Oh, that's cool.
Correct. Well, his first documented knife fight.
Hey, what about Micah from the Apex Predator books? How about Jason Momoa for Micah?
Dude, that would
work.
Excellent.
That would absolutely work.
That would be excellent. Who would
Yeah,
be,
Dwayne
who
Melton
would
makes a
be
good
Jay
point.
Matoska? Would that be Wes Studi?
I would think Wes Studi for Jay Matoska. That would be my pick.
We need Alan Richardson as Kodiak.
He's as white as the driven snow. He does not look Native American.
Just needs to be. I don't know.
Kodiak Native American as well?
Yeah, Kodiak's one of the that's why he came into the bear.
What's the big dude's name from the program? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of it.
I hate his name. I can't think of his real name, but number 99 on the program. You take your helmet and you put it through his numbers. I'm gonna see snot bubbles coming out of his.
That's so violent.
Well, it's football.
Sam Worthington. Sam Worthington to be good.
Vicky Dennison says, yeah, but who would play Gray Eagle? Ooh. You know who when I created the character of Will Gray Eagle, who I actually had in mind, and I know there's no way you could do it because he's passed away, but I envisioned Billy from Predator. That was Will Gray Eagle.
Yeah.
Sonny Landon.
Good one.
He was. Dwayne Melton says Conor McGregor for the Vampire at Lakeview for Logue. Conor McGregor for Logue. If Conor McGregor could act, he could pull it off.
Well,
I don't know if he can act.
Hold your. They remade Roadhouse, and he plays the bad guy in Roadhouse. So hold your judgment on Conor McGregor's acting till March.
I haven't seen the remake.
Okay, so
Tony Morgan says Gray Eagle, the guy from Young Guns. Lou Diamond Phillips is a little old for Gray Eagle. Gray Eagle's a big dude.
For Gray Eagle's wife, I totally see Amber Midthunder, the one that played the protagonist on.
I can see that. I can see her as Sarah.
That's Sarah.
Okay,
I remember her name.
Gray Eagle.
Yeah.
I don't know who the dude is that was was he a Comanche or Apache, whatever, Apache, I think, in the remake of Magnificent Seven. That dude.
I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking. I can see his face.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Can you IMDb that? See who that was.
I'm on it right now.
2016.
Vicky Dennison says, "How about Lou Diamond Phillips?" I think Lou Diamond Phillips is a great actor, and he might even be in contention for Jay Matoska. He's just not big enough for Gray Eagle, and he's a little old for Gray Eagle. But I love him as an actor.
Him at his age right now, I think he would be a good Jay Matoska.
This dude is
Martin Sensmeyer.
Naoma says Gray Eagle has to be Bronson Pelletier. Who's that?
Yeah, Martin Sensmeyer played Red Harvest in the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, he's a part of the Alaska Native tribes, the Tlingit. As so he would be. He was born in '84, so he'd be good. Yeah.
Sweet.
Tell him all kinds of important stuff.
Missy Bash says Gray Eagle, Graham Greene. Graham Greene's a great actor, but again, kind of getting up there.
Yeah. My brother Carly just chastised me because he was born in Denham Springs, Louisiana. So my brother Keith was born in Picayune, Mississippi, which is right next door to Slidell, Louisiana. So we all right on. We're riding the line.
Is it Angie's family that was from New Orleans?
No, I have an aunt from New Orleans. All her family is from Mississippi and Florida.
Okay, well, I apologize, Doc. I must have fallen asleep at the wheel somewhere there. I don't know why I thought you were from Louisiana.
I don't care. I'm just messing with my aunt. My aunt Ruby lived in Louisiana. So, and I got a bunch of cousins in Hammond and Ponchatoula. So,
well, I grew up in Farmington, Missouri, which is literally on the same latitude as Springfield. But yet Farmington is a northern town, and Springfield is much more southern. And like in Farmington, you don't have sweet tea; it's always unsweet.
Are you serious?
And, yeah, I'm serious.
You order sweet tea in Kansas City, they look at you like you got a third arm growing out of your neck.
And they're like the same latitude. And in St. Louis barbecue, which is close to Farmington, is as diametrically opposed to KC barbecue as possible.
Yeah.
And it's even different than Memphis. And Memphis ain't that far away.
Dude, I can get sweet tea in Colorado Springs all day long, but I can't get sweet tea in Boulder.
No, I grew up drinking unsweet tea, which is great because I'm a diabetic, but But yeah, I ordered unsweet tea the first day I was in Springfield when I moved to college. And the waitress looked at me like I just spit on the table.
Made in USA says, hi guys, been following the channel for a year now. I'm a big fan. Can't stay, but we'll catch a replay soon. Thanks for all you do. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Boys, let's kind of hit the railroad switch and try to redirect the train kind of back back toward the tracks.
Great segue. Yes.
Who else, sir?
Ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
And as much as I enjoy fantasy casting the movies, I don't think that's what people are really here for.
No, but it was fun to have the gallery's input on it.
It was fun. We need to maybe one of these nights we'll just do a show just on that fantasy casting characters from the books. I got a lot to choose from.
I haven't lost you.
All right. So Teddy Roosevelt, ultimate conservationist.
If he did hunt, let's say he was president in 1901, so he was hunting across the West in the late 1800s, say circa 1882 to probably about 1885. Well, 1895. Who would have gone into politics by then? What the heck would you have used to bring something like a cryptid down back then?
18.
No, now that's after Declan's time because Declan is still in percussion cap stage.
Well, let's look at this, man. 1876, Winchester came out with an 1876 lever action. That was a preferred rifle of Tom Horn, and it was chambered in a 45-60. And that was a very.
When did the 45-70 come out? Because that would be.
And you've also got the Sharps.
The Sharp 45-70 was even before then. As far as the lever action with high capacity and good knockdown, the 45-60 was the one. 45-70 was out there. I mean, the Sharp, the trapdoor Sharps, 1874. Those all were very formidable calibers back then. So, I mean, and if you're talking,
what about this?
Repeating,
I'm sorry.
You got the 45-60 or the 45-60 1876 Winchester Centennial model.
Randall Kildare says, what did they hunt elephant with back then?
There was overlap.
What did they hunt with the elephant with back then?
Oh man, they had all those solid brass guns from like England, like the Rigby rounds and everything like that.
460 Rigby.
The double rifles, the Nitro Express or whatever.
5 and 700 Nitro Express.
They had, and they were like solid hand-turned brass rounds, just for ultimate penetration. And they were typically in like a double rifle or a drilling triple rifle configuration.
Mm-hmm.
So
for long range, what about something like the Schmidt-Rubin? It was like 7.62 by 54. Would that have had the power to take one of those things down?
But that would have been smokeless powder, like from like 1892 on. Yeah, I mean, because you got the 1894 Winchester was chambered in 30-30. That was the first commercially made smokeless powder cartridge in the States. And then you got like 30-40 Craig, which was used during the Spanish-American War.
Well, the guns even that I've used in the Dark Frontiers books, the Colt Walker was considered one of the most powerful handguns until fairly modern times.
It was black powder, and it was equivalent to like almost a 44 mag in those days. I mean, it was like 5 pounds, but it was like a cruiser.
See Teddy having one or two of those on hand.
Yeah, exactly. So
I stand corrected. The Schmidt-Rubin was built in 1889 and was 7.5 by 55.
Yeah. So those were some of the earlier. I was talking the U.S. made was like 1892 on was like the 30-30 Winchester. The Schmidt-Rubin, you could definitely take one down. That's like a 30-06 almost.
We're talking about the Colt Walker.
Yeah.
This is a black powder knockoff of the pistol that Declan carries. This is a black powder knockoff of the Griswold. It's not loaded. It's never been loaded. It's just, I get it to just kind of get the feel of the gun from when I write. But the barrel of that is only 36 caliber. You can imagine the like 45, 47 caliber round coming out of a freaking, Walker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this one packs quite a punch. This is the exact modeling caliber. The Griswold was a direct knockoff of the 1851 Colt. The 1851 Colt is what Wild Bill killed Dave Tutt here on the square in Springfield, Missouri, at 75 yards with a non-rifled round.
Yeah.
Smooth bore.
Only confirmed traditional gunfight in Western history.
Yeah,
the whole
they think it might have happened in other places, but they know for sure it happened here.
And
next time you boys are in town, I'll take you guys to Dave Tutt's grave.
And to correct myself, Steve, the Schmidt Rubin was a black powder rifle. It was not smokeless, so the smokeless was not.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Didn't we ride by
the caliber off? My ex-father-in-law had a modified one.
Yeah, we drove past it.
A 60x54R.
Mm.
But it had iron sights that elevated to 1,000 meters, so that kind of impressed the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And supposedly my father-in-law could hit a dinner plate at 1,000 meters with it.
That's a hell of a shot with those elevated sights.
He was a little Arkansas country boy, and he was a hell of a damn shot, or still is.
Can you imagine trying to load slugs in a punt gun?
Yeah. Oh my God, dude.
Well, I was about to say, can you consider the guys hauling a punt gun around in a wagon? I mean, that'll reach out and
it's essentially a rifle cannon.
Well, when did that 4-bore come out, Doc?
Dude, the 4-bore's been around for, I don't know, since mid 1800s. I mean, because it was all a black powder cartridge. Like the 7.62x54 was like in 1891. They started doing smokeless in the late 1880s, early 1890s.
That's basically shoulder-fired artillery out of a gun. I mean, if you had somebody who was big enough to tote one of them around, that definitely is going to take one down. I mean, if you look at Kentucky Ballistics, he does a bunch of videos on that gun. And look at where he shows the round.
It has over 200 foot-pounds of energy on the stock.
250 pounds of felt recoil.
Yeah. It's crazy. So, I mean, and those were historically black powder rounds.
Dude, I would be nervous about trying to hunt a Bigfoot with a 458 SOCOM modern rifle. It had to have been just terrifying to go after something like that with those old rifles. Because especially the black powder ones, that weren't always the most reliable of weapons when the conditions were damp.
Yeah. Because that's the old saying that don't get your powder dry. Remember that?
Keep your powder dry.
Keep your powder dry. That was the old saying. As you're leaving somebody's house, keep your powder dry. So, and then Glenn Dennison, Winchester 86s. They had some good calibers in there. So I believe they even had like one of the big 50s in there. So
it's theoretically possible Roosevelt could have brought one down.
Yeah. So the Frederick Courtney Sellis was hunting in Africa with a 4-bore in 1876. So it went at least that far back.
Yeah.
So they could have had it.
I mean, the 1876 or the 1886 had 4570, 4590, 5110.
Yeah. It was invented in 1880, it looks like. 1880.
Yeah.
Ollie's Cat mentioned the first Gatling gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the like Steve is hitting on this, man. They had the capability back then with these big caliber rounds. They weren't moving incredibly fast, but they had science and physics on their side in the form of kinetic energy.
Well, and they wouldn't drop 1,200 rounds a minute out of them, but you don't need it. I mean, we'll take, just as a more modern example, take the Madus, 50 caliber BMG. Granted, it'll throw a whole bunch of them down the road at a time, but there's very little that will stand up to a single fired shot of a 50 BMG.
Oh yeah, I mean you're talking an area weapon versus a direct weapon, so
right, exactly. Yeah. But I'm saying the foot-pounds of force, the what's the word I'm looking for? The the hydrostatic shock, if you subscribe to that, it's going to, if you were wearing some kind of body armor made out of like adamantium or something, that was completely impenetrable, it would knock you out of your freaking ass.
Yeah, Steve.
You may not, just because it stops it doesn't mean that transfer of force is not going on.
Bro, it's going to turn your insides to jelly.
Oh yeah, turn your rib cage to powder.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that a 45 ACP is equivalent to getting hit in the chest with a 15-pound sledgehammer.
Yeah.
And a 45 is nothing compared to the stuff
some
we're
of the
talking
ballistics
about
on these bigger rifles. Now, folks, just to point this out, none of us are advocating hunting a cryptid.
No.
In all the times we've gone out, yes, we always go armed, but it is never our intention to hunt one. I don't have any plans to be the guy that drags one in and says, I brought in proof. Don't want to be that guy. The only way I will shoot to put one down is in self-defense or in defense of somebody that I'm with. And that's the only, I have no intention to bring one in.
I would probably be using it for the purpose of laying down covering fire while I was running as fast as my fat ass would move.
More than likely as a deterrent, because I don't know that a 9mm, depending on where you hit it, I don't think a 9mm is going to get the job done. But fortunately, I've been upgunning my caliber classes here lately.
If I was lucky enough to get an eyeball shot, I might take one out with my Glock 26. I typically carry.
There's some places you can do a lot of damage. Even without over penetration, you can even a hollow point can do a lot of damage. I don't care how big the thing is. If you hit it in the neck, you're doing a lot of damage. But the thing is that's a very tough shot. That's not a
groin.
Yeah, with the pelvic girdle, another great area.
The femoral arteries are very close, and I guarantee you hit him in the balls, it's going to take his bite out of him.
Well, that's what Doc and I talked about when I started talking about the actual doctrine of the wild hunt. What they would aim at, and I had the same conversation with you, Steve. We talked about the big arteries, and that's what Daniel Clark pushes in the books. If you're going to shoot these things, get the big artery groups, get the femoral, get the carotid, get the brachial. You get those big arteries, and I don't care how big and bad and tough it is, it's going to bleed out, and it's going to bleed out pretty fast.
Yep. I was told in my Stop the Bleed class, which is probably nowhere near as good as the classes that Dark Angel Medical puts on, but I was told in mine that if you hit the femoral artery and sever it, the victim has 15 seconds of usable consciousness.
Yeah, Doc's got a video that pretty much puts that spot on.
There was a video.
Am I on the right?
I'd have to find it.
It's
on one of the It was on one of the hunting channels. There was a guy, and granted, horrible shot, but he shot at a white-tailed deer with a 50 caliber sniper's rifle, the Barrett 50. And you see the shot, the video, you see him fire, and then seconds later you see the deer drop, but you just see like this cloud of red mist come out of the deer's, like out of its nose before it falls. Well, they slowed the camera down. It was a high-speed camera. They slowed the camera down and looked at the shot. The dude actually missed the deer, didn't even hit it. The bullet went by less than 6 inches from its nose and sucked its lungs out through its nose.
/ pulmonary edema. That's impressive.
And that's how the deer died. There wasn't a hole in it. Because when he went over to look at the deer, he was like, where did I hit it? And they're like, I don't think you did hit it. And then when they slowed the camera down, I was like, holy crap. A near miss pulverized its lungs. Allie's cat says, didn't Daniel Boone reportedly kill a Bigfoot? Yeah, supposedly he hunted a Bigfoot, and he also supposedly got an Ozarks Howler. Greg House says, throat or head. Got to be careful with headshots. Skulls are thick, and even a large caliber bullet will glance off if it doesn't hit just right. Skulls are tricky shots.
Last week, Kentucky Ballistics did an episode.
Yeah, the bear skull.
With the bear skull. And I was sitting there on the edge of my seat going, how the hell is it still intact?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And then he's like, well, the head weighs 75 pounds. Oh, shit.
The skull is tough to penetrate, even with like a deer. I wouldn't recommend trying to hit a deer. Yeah, I wouldn't even recommend trying to shoot a deer in the head, because unless you're carrying something with a lot of punch and you hit it smack on, odds are very good it's going to skip right off that bone.
Well, even a human skull, to cut into it with a bone saw, you're looking at 3 to 5 minutes to open the calvarium up. And this is with an instrument designed specifically to do that.
Allie's cat, Daniel Boone supposedly killed an Ozarks Howler, supposedly engaged one down in the boot heel, and then later killed one just outside Cuba, Missouri. In fact, he had it stuffed and mounted and put in his private collection. And after he died, his collection was donated to the Smithsonian and hasn't been seen since.
Interesting.
Yeah. Henry White says, never shoot a bear in the head. I would not make the mistake of shooting something that could eat me in the head, because if you don't get the punch, you're gonna piss it off.
Shoot him in a ding ding.
That's what I was just saying.
There have been cases where people have taken a 223 round to the noggin and it's gone under the skin and went under the skin and out the back of their head without penetrating the skull at all.
I've seen it.
And that's
not with that round, but with other rounds. But yes,
so that punching a skull, even a human skull, is not a guarantee. I mean,
if it's at a funny angle, man, bullets do weird shit all the time. I mean, I saw a 9mm. That was a 40 cal. 40 cal stopped right on a dude's sternum. It mushroomed out, and then a 9mm went in the dude's chest, took a U-turn off his scapula, and came out right over his left upper quadrant. And so we thought he had been shot twice because there was no entry wound, but he had been shot once and there was an exit wound. Interessante.
Well, on that note, so this is a 9mm round at close range that didn't even penetrate the quadriceps to the bone.
Yeah.
I was fired out of a Glock.
Yeah. I got a picture of a 9mm round that hit a dude's femur. It was a 124 grain NATO round that blew this dude's femur apart.
Look at the Civil War, what some of those old musket balls did when they hit bone.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Or those cannonballs when they bounced. Taking out the legs. You were step away for a moment, Doc, but I was telling him, I would be aiming for the groin if it was like a Bigfoot or something, because I figured they taught me in my Stop the Bleed class, which I was admitting is not as probably as good as yours. But they told me that you have 15.
Ryan Burke says, give me a fur coat, female Bigfoot urine, 300 pounds of tannerite, and a 6.5 Creedmoor.
There you go.
You want Bigfoot meatballs.
Yeah, if your femoral artery is severed, you have 15 seconds of usable consciousness, is what they told us in our class. I figure that's probably a little bit.
So theoretically, Teddy could have brought one of these things down.
I told him about your video you showed us in the class, Doc, where the guy gets shot in the arm. And Doc said, I'm going to.
Well, he didn't get shot in the arm. Where else did he get shot?
Well, trying to be nice.
Well, yeah, right in the feet, right in the femoral. He got hit in the femoral.
Well, I know I was
Doc put a timer up and said, from the time that you hear the shot, I'm going to hit the button. And then I'm gonna stop it when he stops vocalizing.
He loses consciousness.
Yeah,
and it was
I paid close attention. And I wish they would have done your class, but I could put on a Cat 7 in 9 seconds, and I figured that's where we want to be going.
That's the direction you should be heading in. And Robbie will attest to it. They had bruises after they left the class from putting a tourniquet on.
When they put it on me, they put it on the wrong arm, and I forgot about my glucometer.
Oh,
that little sucker hurt like a bitch when they put that windlass down. and they've been tight until the pulse ox turned off. So I mean, it was.
I went home that night and heard tourniquet, left leg in my sleep. Tourniquet, right arm. Close your eyes. Tourniquet, left leg. I heard that in my sleep that first night.
Yeah. Well, the chance of me seeing a mass casualty event in the urgent care is very slim, but is a non-zero probability. And we stock Izzy's, we stock Cat 7s, and they make each of us go through training every year. What was it?
I don't want to put it up on screen, but read Miss Naomi's
I'll look at it.
Funny.
Oh my.
Oh Lord, Naoma, I miss you so much.
I love you, Naoma.
That is hilarious.
Oh, you're my spirit animal.
Naoma with the zinger.
She always has them. She don't say much until she says it.
Blade's knife.
But yeah, I was going to say, but the brain is cranking the entire time. She's 3 steps ahead of you before she opens her mouth.
That's funny.
That's why she's such a great storyteller.
Oh no, is that the Snark Queen? She strikes again. No one is safe from the wrath of Naoma. She just called me a little cave dweller earlier.
That's amazing.
The homunculus.
Yeah, I was. I took a short nap before coming on the show tonight, and I still had bad hair day. Like my hair's ever got a good day. And I was scared to death that Ken Brock was going to be on. So I'm like, I'm going to wear my Colombian cocaine dealer's hat just so I, can cover
seen Ken in a while.
The Kim Jong-un haircut.
I ain't talked to Ken in a minute. I ain't talked to him.
Need to give him a shout.
He came on one night when you were off, and he's like, I had to go to the liquor store just so I could be on the show. That was hysterical. He was pouring some kind of rum drink, and I was like, alcohol isn't necessary. It's just encouraged. Or allowed, perhaps.
That's true.
Oh, it was just the first show we had. It was important to me because of how big a factor Bushmills played in the Ragnarok Rising story. And Wiley, that particular night, I want to drink Bushmills on the show. And, so we did. And then Six Gun, God bless him, sent me a canteen cup because I've never had the honor of serving in the military. And I figured drinking Bushmills Black out of a canteen cup is about as Ex Machina OG as you can get.
Pretty much.
When Amazon suggested, because I bought Ragnarok Rising, that I also was interested in this black steel flask, it told me all I needed to know.
Like that.
When we look at the formation of the National Park Service, though, I don't think it's a coincidence that the missing 411 clusters are centered around those and the national parks are also centered around large cave systems.
Yeah.
The national parks, I don't think that was accidental.
I'm probably way off base, but my particular thought, just from when I read about Roosevelt and his just common sense mentality, is that he probably built the national parks to protect us. I don't think he was, doing annual hunts to go take down a gugway. I just think that he was trying to keep Americans from, Ned Flandersing their way into being eaten by Bigfoot.
Inadvertently building their home, their houses and ranches right in the middle of prime territory.
Well, seriously, I mean, I've camped in Mark Twain National Forest. Like I said before, I'm an Eagle Scout. I've never hunted, but I grew up in the outdoors. It never occurred to me that I could be, pitching my tent in a dogman's backyard or Bigfoot's backyard. I wouldn't want to encounter one. I mean, from a scientific standpoint, it'd be absolutely fascinating. But from a realistic save my ass standpoint, definitely not. There's not stuff in Doc's kit that completely fix a Bigfoot injury. It's as close as a human can come up with, but
he's going to need more than horsehair sutures and duct tape.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I'm going to bring my 22 and shoot you in a kneecap just so you can be the bait, so I can get away.
I was joking with DA.
Here's a medical question for you.
Okay.
Sure.
this is far beyond my knowledge. I've got good first aid ability, but this is medical knowledge above and beyond mine. Let's say you did have a bad encounter and one of these things tore off a limb. How long would you have to before you had to we bled out? How long would you have to get that tourniqueted?
I mean, less than 30 seconds.
How high up are we talking?
So let's just say, for the sake of argument, an arm.
I mean, an arm where? Mid arm, elbow.
Let's say at the elbow. At the elbow.
So
you got less than 20 seconds to get a tourniquet on.
So unless you've got a good skill with applying a tourniquet with one hand, you're basically boned. Unless you've got somebody like Doc on hand immediately, and even then, by the time he gets the windlass locked down, you will have lost so much blood.
Yeah. Let me put it this way: most human beings have roughly 5 liters ish of blood. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but let's use 5 liters as a happy medium here. All right, y'all just work with me. And in a big injury, like let's say something hits your femoral artery, your common femoral, which is a big one because you got 3 branches of your femoral. You got your common, your deep, your superficial, yada, yada, yada. But your big old common femoral runs right next to your common femoral vein. They run right next to each other. They're co-located. You get hit. It's about the size of your index finger too, y'all. So if you want to know what size your vessels are, look at your index finger. That's about the size of them. You get hit in that sucker, you've got about 120 seconds of free bleeding before you're deep in hurt locker. In the first 45 seconds, you're going to lose about a liter of blood.
So in 20% of your blood volume.
In a minute, you're going to lose upwards of close to 30% of your volume. In 2 minutes, you're going to lose about 40% of your circulating blood volume. You're going to be right on the cusp of dying. So the bigger the vessel, the bigger the limb, the bigger the vessel. Equates to bigger blood loss. I got my brachial artery right here, right? So if my arm was ripped off right here, my brachial artery is about the size of my little finger. Let's say 10 millimeters, 40 caliber. Let's say 40 caliber. You're gonna lose almost a liter of blood in 45 seconds from that big vessel.
10 millimeters above my finger there.
There you go. So you have about 20 seconds to get that tourniquet on, because that's going to cause you to have a change in your attitude, and you're going to become horizontal and one with the ground. So there you go.
Well, if you got 20 seconds and your ability to put your own tourniquet on is probably gone.
Oh yeah, 15 seconds is about all you got. Yeah. So I'm, a registered nurse. I work in basically a rural ER, and I'm pretty educated on traumas. With Doc with me, who I would proudly admit is probably the most badass of medics that I know. Unless he had a tourniquet that he could immediately deploy and a big ass set of hemostats, I messed up like Percocet.
Yeah.
It's legit. I had the honor of participating in an autopsy a couple of weeks ago. And I wear a size 9 ring. I have fairly small hands for a big dude. We took out the aorta from the top of the where it exits the heart all the way down to the iliac arteries. And I was able to stick my index finger in the iliac artery, and it filled it up. That told me all I needed to know, because right below the iliac is the femoral. The blood would come out of there so freaking fast, there's no stopping it. 5
coming
liters.
Out of a hose.
It is.
A liter is roughly a quart. Yeah, a liter is roughly a quart. So you have a gallon and a quarter of total blood in your entire body. A gallon and a quarter for a 200-pound man. And it's coming out a hole that's the size of a 50 caliber round.
Yeah.
You are hosed. You are beyond screwed. Make nice with your creator, because I love Doc to death, but there's a certain point where his skills won't bring me back.
No. I mean, And that's what I tell people in class. What I teach people in class is like, this is your patch kit. This is to get you to the hospital so you can get whole blood on board. Because if you
lost what Northwoods is talking about, I've got to get it to you. I haven't sent yours out yet.
Okay. Yeah. So if you've lost whole blood, you need whole blood. I mean, pasta water ain't going to cut it, man.
Well, and if you don't have your spleen, you're even more fucked, because the spleen will hold about a half a liter of blood for you. You know, granted, they're 30 to 45 day old red blood cells, so they're kind of the flea market after sale blood cells, but it's better than nothing. But if you're a splenectomy patient,
all your
make nice with God, guys.
All your trauma stuff is going to be related to how quickly you can get blood back on board. If you have a hemorrhagic, yes, I am very happily married, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yep. He has known his wife since 5th grade.
Yep.
And Angie is absolutely gorgeous.
5 years old. 5 years old.
5 years old. I thought it's 5th grade. I apologize.
No, man.
You
have a very finite time to get the bleeding stopped before you're in a very bad spot as far as your body's own coagulation cascade has to catch up. If it can't catch up, then it's going to be a production consumption type of thing, and you're going to end up, your blood's going to be leaking out of every orifice in your body. So
the odds are very good that if you're wounded by a Bigfoot in an attack, it's fatal.
Yep.
You're probably not going to survive a direct attack.
Yeah. Now, and not only from blood loss, but just let's look at how heavily muscled these creatures are. Just the amount of blunt force trauma that you're going to receive to your organs. I mean, you're probably going to liver lax, spleen fractures, pelvic fractures, collapsed lungs, things like that. So
these crazy parts.
Yeah.
I am drawing a complete blank, Doc. What is it when you use up all your clotting factors? You start bleeding out your eyes and your ears and your
DIC. Disseminated intravascular coagulation. DIC.
DIC. Thank you. It escaped my mind. So I'm thinking of one of these major traumas, and you use up all your clotting factors trying to react to it. And then you're sitting there, you're laying on the ground with nobody close by, and you're bleeding out your eyeballs, your ears, your butthole, any orifice that will shed blood. You can't put a hemostat on everything.
That's right.
You run out of Izzy's at some point.
Yeah. There's nothing that's going to help that. I mean, they can keep putting platelets into you. There was a police officer in the Watertown shootout after the Boston bombing that happened back in 2014, and he was hit in the groin, and it hit his iliac artery, and they replaced 70% of his circulating volume. This police officer typed O negative, which is your trauma blood. He typed O negative until his own natural production kicked in and started producing his own blood type. So you can lose quite a bit of blood, but unless you are right near a level 1 facility, your prognosis is very grim.
We had a dude that had a vertebral artery dissection or vertebral artery aneurysm. Oof. And we're a level 1 trauma center. That dude immediately went to the neurotrauma intensive care unit. In the span of 3 days, he got 16 units of blood.
Yep.
It's like 8 liters. Okay. Your body only has 5.
Yeah.
So they replaced him in about 2/3 of another him.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Did you see the question from Al Bertrand?
What is the average pressure of blood circulating through the body? Blood? I mean, measurement of that aside from blood pressure? No, that's it. That's your measurement is blood pressure. It's measured in millimeters of mercury. The areas that are higher in pressure than others, your arterial system is going to be a higher pressure than your venous system, because your arterial system, think of it as like your supply route. Your venous system is your return route. Your arterial system has to push through 62,000 miles of vasculature every minute. And then your return route brings it back to your heart to get pumped to your lungs, reoxygenated, and then the cycle starts all over again.
So as a point of reference, the typical atmospheric pressure at sea level is roughly 30 millimeters of mercury. That's how hard the Earth's atmosphere pushes down on us and keeps us from, coming apart. At rest, when your heart is between beats, you're putting in about 80 millimeters of mercury. When the heart contracts and raises the pressure, it goes up to about 120. So roughly 4 times the Earth's atmospheric pressure.
Yeah.
It's a significant amount of pressure.
That's what we call your mean arterial pressure. So you've got to have a certain amount to circulate to perfuse oxygen into all your tissues at that level. So yeah, if you're basically, from what DA has said, if you get attacked by a Bigfoot out in the wilderness and you don't have a level 1 trauma resuscitation center close to you, the prognosis is very bad.
Well,
Miss
Lene,
planning on going out looking for these things.
Miss Lene hit it. So basically, if I get a major injury here out in my podunk farm, backwood farm, I'm gonna eat Jesus. Unless now, and I will say this, unless you have the ability to achieve hemostasis. I mean, if it's from an extremity or which you can put a tourniquet on, or a junctional injury that you can use a hemostatic gauze on, yeah, the prognosis is not good. So it's not a matter of just the injury, but having the tools necessary to treat the injury to get you back to a resuscitative center, a definitive care facility. So having the injury is one thing, but then if you got the tools on hand, which you can find at darkangelmedical.com, then you can take care of the injury yourself. I've had several patients that have actually self-resuscitated themselves, or not self-resuscitated, but self-treated, in order to get back to a facility where they were able to get blood products.
Yeah, that leads me to where I was actually trying to direct that. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
If I was in the middle of Mark Twain National Forest and the only person with me was Doc, and I just got violated by Bigfoot and I'm bleeding from a truncal injury, so something that's not the arms and legs, and Doc happened to have with him the best kit that he sells. And again, I said Doc is the most badass medic that I know, and I mean this sincerely. I would probably have more use of his ability to give me the last rites as a practitioner of Greek Orthodox religion than his ability as a medic.
Yeah. The further away, and I'm going to say this, unless you can get the bleed controlled, and then who was it said I'm on blood thinners? Dash 5257 Dash. That's not true, man. You can stop the bleed. Even if you have thinners, if it's a junctional bleed, you can use a hemostatic gauze to control those thinners, because we use those hemostatic gauzes inside the hospital, outside the hospital, inside the hospital, in catheterization labs, cardiac cath labs, where people we have artificially thinned their blood just to prevent clots from occurring during the procedures that we're doing on them to save their lives. So we use those particular agents that are available to you via darkangelmedical.com. And you can, it's getting the proper training and having the proper equipment that's going to make a difference in your life, for sure.
Well, a couple of months ago, I had a serviceman who was fighting some demons from Afghanistan, and God bless him for what he's seen. But he had attempted suicide, and he had severed the lower end of his brachial artery below the elbow, and razor blade kind of thing. And he had severed it. Like every time his heart beat, it was going. And I grabbed our trauma kit. I put a Cat 7 up on his bicep, near the armpit. I put a piece of quick clot on it, and then wrapped it up with an Izzy, and we went to the ER. Thankfully, the dude survived. But if it hadn't been for the kind of stuff that Doc does and Doc puts out, I wouldn't have known what any of that stuff was. And it was cool. It was absolutely awesome. I feel terrible that he was almost one of those statistics.
Yeah,
23 days they could do. Yeah.
Sadly enough, Steve, my wife and I had a classmate of ours who, this is tragic, man. She died alone. She had a AV graft, which is what is common as arterial venous graft in dialysis patients. She was a dialysis patient, and the clot came loose, and she had no way to control the bleeding and died out alone in her home, which was sad.
That's horrible.
Now, Miss Naoma said was wondering about low blood pressure versus high blood pressure. Would that make her more likely to bleed out? Actually, no. The higher the blood pressure, I mean, that's going to make a quicker bleed out. Now, when we're saying bleed out, we're not saying you're losing all of your volume. You're just losing enough volume to make your heart stop. That's called a trauma arrest. Your heart arrests, it stops. So you're just, because your heart's a muscle, your heart needs blood, which blood carries oxygen, right? So your muscles need that oxygen. So if you don't have enough blood, you don't have enough blood pressure. We're a hydraulically driven machine. So sorry, D8, I mean, it's turned into a class.
No problem.
But
I love it.
If you don't have, if we're hydraulically driven machine, so if you don't have the hydraulic pressure there necessary, which is requisite for life, then you're not going to have that pressure to perfuse your cells to give you that life-giving oxygen, which means your cells are going to die, which means your tissues are going to die, which means those organs are going to die, which means you die. So
that was my whole point of pointing us in this direction is if you're going to go out and look for a cryptid or anything like that, just understand the danger you're in. These are unpredictable creatures. We don't know enough about them to predict their behavior. And anybody that thinks that they're going to walk out and sing Kumbaya and hug Bigfoot like a big teddy bear is probably going to wind up a missing 411. I don't believe for a second that they're all the gentle giants of the woods that are out there to be our buddies. Some might be gentle, some might be, easy tempered and easy to get along with, but some are probably just as mean as you can run across in people.
Yeah.
And
a chimpanzee weighs 100 to 150 pounds. I'm a 225-pound man, 6 feet tall. A chimpanzee can exert 5 times my muscle strength. Okay, that's a chimp.
Yeah.
Bigfoot's conservatively 7 feet tall, maybe 500 pounds, conservatively.
Probably 10 times as strong as we are.
Oh, yeah. I would either be his food or his bitch. And
probably both.
Neither one's particularly pleasant. Probably both. It's not particularly pleasant. I don't own a snowmobile, so I'm just screwed.
Yeah, my point is going out there, even if your intention is to try to make peaceful contact, could have disastrous repercussions.
Amen.
And
Amen.
that's just from a cryptid. There are lots of things out in the woods that can and will kill you that have nothing to do with cryptids. Bears, wolves, mountain lions, jaguars.
Dude, impaling yourself on a freaking piece of deadfall tree limb while you're
tripping and falling on the trail and impaling yourself on a stick.
Yep. When DA and Robbie
what
and
I refer to
out,
as the greater North American meth head is another one.
I was about to say, when DA and Robbie and I go out, we carry guns because we're armed to defend ourselves against the Mexican Americans, not against the black bear, not against the gugway, not against the dogman.
This is my day bag that goes with me. Any of you have seen any of the videos I've put out recently, you've seen it on me because I've been carrying it. But this is on my day bag kit. Doc, you want to tell them what that is?
Well, it's available at darkangelmedical.com.
It's also got a Scallywag tactical blade right above it.
DA's got an EDC kit that's available on our website. EDC kit has part of what I call is my top 5, and that is a tourniquet, gloves, hemostatic agent, pressure bandage, and chest seals. If you've got all of those, and with hemostatic agent, you need at least 12 feet for a major injury. You have
this is your quick clot gauze, right?
Yeah. Okay. So hemostatic, quick clot, or cheetah sand, kata sand, whatever you want to call it. You've got the top 5. So you got the ability to stop the bleeding and start the breathing. So if you've got any injury to an extremity, tourniquet. If you've got any extremity to a junction where we have arterial circulation that I can't tourniquet off, you want to pack it with that hemostatic gauze and then wrap it with that pressure bandage. If you got any injury to the box, where from the collarbone to the belly button all the way around, where air could be pulled into the space where the lungs live, you want to seal that sucker off. So tourniquet the limbs, pack the junctions, and seal the box. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty graphic, and it's graphic and inappropriate. But the guy that I got taught our class, he used a chest seal for anything tits to twat, is how he described it.
No, and that's and the way I teach it is, it's very simplistic, and it enables you to have the material to keep somebody else alive till they reach that next level of care. And dude, if y'all don't know how to do that, man, all that stuff was not around during Teddy Roosevelt's time. Come to one of my classes. Robbie's been in one of my classes, and he'll tell you, he's not going to leave there that class a EMT or a combat medic, but he's going to leave there with enough knowledge to know how to take care of somebody else's life. And that's what it's about. So I'm sorry if I got way off on a tangent and turned into a class, but what if people who are hunting cryptids had this knowledge? Could we potentially decrease mortality? Yeah, absolutely.
Doc, why don't you tell us a little bit about Dark Angel Medical while I'm getting the short story ready?
What I could tell you about Dark Angel Medical, man, this has actually been a lifetime. I started Dark Angel Medical back in 2011 as a method of keeping people alive longer to get to the hospital. And our premise is simplicity under stress, because you're not going to remember the complicated stuff under stress. You're going to remember very simple things, because we can remember one thing under stress at a time. So Dark Angel Medical, we started doing not only trauma kits, first aid kits, your boo-boos, your minor aid stuff, all the way to your major, holy crap, somebody's bleeding to death stage. We also not offered the products, but the training in which to get you familiarized with this information, because it's not just having the product, it's knowing how to use it, and how to use it quickly and effectively and decisively in a bad situation. Because literally, people, if somebody's bleeding out bad, they have 120 seconds, before, and you've got to make the decision before the 120 seconds is up as to how to take care of them. So head over to our website, darkangelmedical.com. We've got a YouTube channel that's got some free online training videos that'll help get you familiarized with the products we sell and how to maybe make a difference in somebody's life. And if you want to learn more, you can do online training, or you can actually come to one of our in-training classes. And I'll be there this year to teach you. We're going to be in Greenville, South Carolina in July this year, and I hope to see you there if you're out on the East Coast there. So check our website out, darkangelmedical.com. Use the code Cryptid25. Dude, that is our biggest discount code. We really don't make any money because all of our prices have gone up so much this year. It's ridiculous. So use Cryptid25, and that is going to be 25. That's going to be your 25% off coupon code for your order. And that's our way of saying thank you. And all of our kits are HSA, FSA qualified, approved, whatever. And if you ever use one of our kits to save somebody's life, then we will replace what you have used 100% free of charge. We just got confirmation of 176 this week, number 176.
That's amazing.
That is awesome.
So yeah,
congrats, Doc.
I'm pretty proud that
like
redneck from South Mississippi had that idea. So y'all head over to Dark Angel.
One thing that we always mention when he's not here is all this stuff is American made. They are not cheap kits because they are not cheap kits.
No,
you get is not going to be. It's not going to be any Walmart bullshit you pick up for more than
it's what I'm going to use on you, or you, or you, or my wife, or my children, or my grandchildren.
The kit I carried on my duty belt as a cop. I wouldn't trust my life to any other kit.
When I first met DA, we became close friends. He pointed out to me where he kept his backup pistol and his dart kit. Because he's like, you're going to need one of them. And I said, brother, I will pick up the fight whichever way it takes. And I knew where both of them were.
Yeah.
Bobby, you want to tell us a little bit about Scallywag real quick? I kind of want to go over the affiliates as quick as we can so we can get to the story for these folks.
All right, real quick. Scallywag Tactical is another one of our affiliate sponsors. They make some of the best blades, from little pocket knives to big things that will make it a lot harder for Doc to put a tourniquet on. And
shit,
these are some. You know, we talk about how important it is to have a Dark Angel medical kit. It's also important to have something. You know, if you're not going to carry a gun, carry something. You don't have to carry something this big, obviously, but you know, have a knife. And these knives are very high quality, and they will cut you 3 ways:
long, deep, and continuous.
It's been too long since we've got to say that, Doc.
I know.
One of our episodes, DA nearly needed a Doc kit.
Here's my broadsword. The mini jack.
What'd you say,
That's
Steve?
What I every day at work. I said one day DA was trying to demonstrate how sharp the Dark Angel medical knives were. We nearly needed one of Doc's kits. He was like trying to show us that it would shave his arm. He's like, oh shit.
Yep. Yeah, I did the same thing, just not trying to shave, just trying to catch a knife that fell out of my hand. Doc still loves to laugh
I
at me
carry a
about
mini
that
jack to work every day. I cut your cardboard boxes
I'm
with it.
waiting to cut yourself, Robbie.
This one right here, doing the
I know
this thing that I'm doing right here.
I know.
Talking about these knives, and the knife fell out of my hand like a dummy. I tried to catch it. Doc was like, "Oh!" So I get a text
saw
message.
it happening.
I get a text message almost immediately. Said, "You cut yourself, didn't you?" I'm like,
"Man, that made my tank pucker up. I ain't gonna lie. Good Lord."
I was about to say, and Doc puckered from Colorado.
But yeah, and like I said, you don't have to get something like this because they've got plenty of stuff like this. The Gunner's Mate that are meant to do a certain thing, but this knife right here, this goes with me everywhere when I'm off. It goes in my shop with me, and there's nothing that I've had to cut or get up cardboard boxes from Amazon, stripping wire, or you know, cutting stuff that I've got to cutting tape that I've got to put around one of my laser engravings. I mean, it does everything. This is my EDC knife. You know, I got an Orca that I carry with me to work because it's got a serrated blade on it in case I got to cut a seat belt or something like that. They've got a knife for whatever you need. If you want a good set of kitchen knives, they make some of the best kitchen knives you ever had. DA's got them, and I finally got them. They're beautiful.
Dude, they're freaking great, man.
So
they're a great company. And if you've ever watched the show or you have met my wife, you know I'm a dumbass. I bought a privateer as my
Your
first.
words, not ours.
Well, I bought as my first Scallywag tactical knife. I bought myself a privateer. I admittedly was a dumbass and didn't realize that a hard knife is also a brittle knife. And a knife is meant to cut, not to pry. And I was trying to clear out a stapler at work because we buy the cheapest, most worthless staplers known to man. And I snapped the last 1/8 of an inch out the end of my privateer. I owned it like a week. And I was like, God, you're an idiot. And God bless him. I reached out to Craig. And after chastising me for being a moron, as he should have been, Craig is the captain, if you've ever done business with a Scallywag. And after chastising me for being let's be honest, a fucking idiot, he told me to send the knife back to him. And he went ahead and he sharpened off the end of the knife to make a proper blade out of it again. It's slightly shorter than it was, factory, but it works wonderfully. It meant a lot to me that he, first of all, told me where I screwed up because you learn from your mistakes, but then he stood by his product. And this stuff was made out of D2 die steel, which, as I understand it, is steel that is used to press other pieces of steel into a machine shape.
Hi.
So it's freaking ass hard. But that makes it brittle. They're not meant to pry. I've always owned cheap knives. And I was like, well, I've always pried before. And I've used it with knives, 1/3 of this price. Well, you own cheap knives, dude. And I still have that privateer in my car. I mean, that's my, if shit goes sideways, that's the go-to knife I've got in there. It meant a lot to me that he took the time to educate me and stand by his product. And I'm sure Doc would do the same thing, I'm living proof that you could be highly educated and be a moron. You're not an expert in everything. And it was cool. That was really cool. Customer for life.
Make sure you use discount code DA Roberts 10 for 10% off your order. That also includes on the blemish blades and sale items.
I was getting there. Sorry, I was letting Steve.
That's all right. Steve, since you're already on a roll, you want to tell us about Brock blades?
I've been here before. God bless it. So, Scallywag Tactical are wonderful knives. And I will go on record with my hand on the Bible and say that they are the best mass-produced knives that you can find on the market. They will hold up to your Kershaws and your Bucks, and Robbie could probably throw out a few more brands that I don't know. They're worth every penny you spend on them, but they are mass-produced knives. Craig runs an amazing business, but these knives are produced in mass production. Brock blades. Each of these are individually produced. Ken Brock produces it in his own shop. I think Doc's gone there and played with him and made a few knives or worked on some knives.
I've played with the knives.
Products.
And play with him.
Play with knives.
Play with knives. Yes.
I'm not going to judge you, man. It's the 21st century. But anyway, these things are singly produced by an artist. So they're both a knife, a good knife, and a piece of art. Yep. And so, they're just a different kind of critter, as Doc has put it before. Like I said, they're individually produced. If you were to buy was it neck weasel? Is that the one you carry typically?
Street weasel. Neck scalpel.
This is the street weasel.
So if I were to buy a street weasel, and Robbie were to buy a street weasel, and DA were to buy a street weasel, they would not be identical to Doc's street weasel. They would all be badass. They would all do the job. But they're individually produced works of art. And so Ken Brock is a hell of a nice guy. He's got a great sense of humor and busts my balls every chance he gets. But they are one of our affiliates. If you put in the code Cryptid10, you get 10% off your blades. Now, he has a few things that he kind of quote-unquote mass produces, keeps on stock, but he will also make custom stuff for you. And if you do a custom thing, you can't put in the code, but if you let him know that it's Wild Hunt related, it's D.A. Roberts related, you'll get the discount. And it's good stuff. It's awesome stuff. And beautiful stuff that I wish I had,
That's all he's got to say about that.
That's all
I have to say about that. That's all I know.
If we still got some folks hanging around, I'll read part of Demons Part 1.
No.
We do still have quite a few folks hanging around.
151.
Hey,
we're over 200 for a while. We've ran off.
Before y'all say anything, prepare to shut up. So how many of y'all want to hear DA read something out of Demons Part 1? Y'all need to kick into the chat here.
Sound off. Let us know you're live.
Yeah, let us know you're here, and that it ain't like a Netflix and chill kind of night where like it's just asking if y'all still here.
No, we are four best friends and dumb sons of bitches, but really like you hanging out there with us.
Yeah. So, DA, I think the
there they roll.
There they go. Yep, I think they're answering. So, good sir, after you.
Proceed, sir.
Proceed, sir.
I haven't decided how much I'm going to read. I'll just kind of play it by ear. The story is called Demons Part 1. There is a Part 2 to this story. Both of them are novella length. So if you're on the Patreon, you can already read Demons Part 1. Demons Part 2 will probably be up in the next couple of days. So between the two of them, they're right around 40,000 words, which is a novel. Demons Part 1, a codename Wild Hunt story. In battle, you forgive a man anything except an unwillingness to take risks. Sometimes you have to put it on the line. Tom Clancy. 12 June, 1400 hours, Steve's Pub and Grub. Margolin sat at the bar of the mostly empty Steve's Pub and Grub. The only occupants beside him were Steve and one lost tourist sitting at a booth, eating a burger and studying an old paper map. Margolin was sipping at a glass of whiskey and staring off into space. Draining the glass, he lifted it and waggled it from side to side, indicating he wanted another one. Steve smiled, raised the bottle of Gentleman Jack, and refilled the offered glass with a generous double shot. Want to talk about it? Asked Steve, smiling softly. Not really, replied Margolin. Appreciate the offer, but I'd rather just drink and let my memory slowly slip away. Fair enough, said Steve. I totally get that. Change your mind. I'll be here. Margolin nodded and lifted the glass to his lips. Steve frowned slightly as he walked away. That was Margolin's fourth large glass of whiskey. Steve knew the team did some dangerous and stressful things, so he didn't want to push it. However, it was unusual for one of the team to be here alone. They generally came in groups to celebrate. This, however, didn't look like a celebration. Margolin took a long pull from the glass and slowly lowered it back to the paper coaster on the bar. He felt the fiery whiskey burning in his stomach and the warmth spreading to his extremities. It numbed the sensations but did nothing for his memory. That was, unfortunately, still quite clear. Painfully, vividly clear. He lifted the glass to his lips again just as the door opened. He didn't have to look up. He didn't look up, preferring to ignore whoever it was, just like he was going to ignore everyone else. Despite the alcohol, he couldn't help but sense whoever it was, and they were heading right for him. Well, fuck, he muttered, taking another sip. Valkyrie slid onto the bar stool next to him and waved her hand at Steve. Can I get one of those smoky old-fashioned drinks you make? She asked. Sure thing, said Steve, grinning. Single or double? How long has he been here? She said, jerking her head at Margolin. Since around noon, said Steve. Better make it a double, she replied. Looks like I got some catching up to do. They sat in silence as Steve mixed the drink after using the cocktail smoker to fill the interior of the glass. His old-fashioned recipe was a closely guarded secret, but everyone who tried them generally agreed they were the best they'd ever had. Steve added a round whiskey ice cube and poured the dark amber liquid over it, adding a chunk of orange rind and a dark cherry. He swirled the glass a few times with a tiny straw, then sat it in front of Valkyrie. Enjoy, said Steve. Margolin pointed at the drink, then pointed at himself, indicating that Steve should put it on his tab. Steve nodded and walked away. Thanks, said Valkyrie. Margolin shrugged noncommittally. You're unusually quiet, she said. Want to talk about it? Margolin said nothing as she lifted her glass to her nose and let the scent of the smoke fill her nostrils. The deep aroma was the perfect accompaniment to the smokiness of the whiskey. She tasted notes of orange and dark cherry, the woodiness of the whiskey, a slight sweetness to it, and a hint of another flavor she couldn't quite nail down. Was it chocolate? She wasn't sure, and Steve wouldn't tell her, no matter how many times she asked him. I love this drink, she said, smiling. So complex, yet undeniably simple. Every time I get one, I fall in love with it all over again. Margolin stared off into the distance. She recognized that look in a person's eyes. She'd seen it before in so many other soldiers. They called it the 1,000-yard stare. Something was bothering the usually jovial Margolin, and nobody seemed to know what it was. Valkyrie sipped her drink and said nothing, allowing him to reflect silently. Even if he didn't want to talk about it, she wanted him to know someone was there for him. Even sitting in silence together was better than drinking alone. She was still torn by how she felt about him. When she first met him, she thought he was a moron. The longer she was around him, she realized that there was something else there. Something was hiding behind the goofball exterior that he showed the world. Then he saved her life in that swamp when a snake nearly bit her in the face. They weren't really dating, and they weren't just friends. She wasn't really sure what they were, but she knew something could happen between them if they'd only let it. Despite all his flirting, Margolin had done nothing to pursue a relationship with her. She wanted to give him time, but she didn't want to wait forever. They sat silently through another drink, letting the quiet hang heavily in the air. The tourist at the back table paid his bill and left, leaving them alone with Steve. He remained close by, but tried to stay far enough not to look like he was eavesdropping. Margolin motioned for another round, then sat patiently as Steve refilled his glass and sat another old-fashioned in front of Valkyrie. Once he'd walked off, Margolin glanced at Valkyrie and jerked his head toward the back of the room. He got up and headed for a booth well away from the bar. Valkyrie followed him, sitting opposite him in a high-back booth that gave each table a little privacy. Margolin took another sip from his drink, then sat it on a napkin. Valkyrie sat her untouched glass beside his and looked him in the eyes. I don't know if I should tell you this, he said. I've only told this story to one other person since it happened, and they died back in Afghanistan. Valkyrie took his hand in hers and held his gaze. You can tell me anything, she said. I'm here to listen. I don't want you to think differently about me, he said. He replied. I mean, I don't see how you couldn't. Her mind raced now. She wasn't sure what he was hinting at, but it profoundly affected him. She'd seen combat personally. She doubted anything he could tell her would shock her. Then again, He so rarely gave away anything about his past. Hey, she said, squeezing his hands, no judgments. Whatever you need to get off your chest, I'll listen. Margolin took another long drink from his glass, then sat it back down. All right, he said. You asked for it. It all started before I joined the Army, 10 years ago to be exact. Today's the anniversary of the event that would change the course of my life. I was 18 when it happened. And that's where I'm going to stop.
Did y'all like that?
It's pretty badass.
Oh, man.
You know, a wise man who shall remain nameless once told me that the way to tell if a bar is worth a shit is to see how their old-fashioned taste.
I judge bars based on their old-fashioned.
If the old-fashioned stays there, yeah, it's good, stay there. If the old-fashioned's bad, just leave.
Leave them wanting for more. And there you go.
The old-fashioned is one of the simplest cocktails to make, but it's the hardest to make right.
A truly good one's a treasure.
It's kind of like a Manhattan. You know, a bar will either have a magnificent Manhattan or it's complete trash.
Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that.
That was fantastic, brother.
That is Demons Part 1, and it is right now available on the Patreon. If you remember the Patreon, you can read it for free on the Patreon channel, which is patreon.com/DARobertsAuthor. That, along with Demons Part 2 and several other short stories, are going to be part of a short story compilation that I intend to release later this month. If you want to read it now, you're gonna have to see it on the Patreon, but it'll be out sometime later this month.
And can I say something, y'all? We waste more money every month on bad coffee and dry tobacco than we do on what it would cost to support DA and his Patreon and get the access to this awesome literature well before it ever becomes public. So head over to his Patreon and spend the extra little bit of money. That's what it's all about. It's about supporting one another.
Justin Oldfart says, how much is the Patreon? There's several levels. There's numerous levels. You don't have to pick any particular one, just whichever one you feel is right for you. And the Patreon does a couple of really, really important things. One, it helps keep my writing going because the Patreon covers the cost of my subscriptions for my Microsoft Office. It covers any of the Word document stuff, any of the processing stuff I need, including editing costs and covers when I pay my artists for the covers. So the Patreon does go back to the books. So every bit of that in the Patreon is definitely helpful. But the Patreon also allows me to test things on a bigger audience before it ever goes out the door. There's quite a bit of stuff on the Patreon that is not available in print anywhere right now. Some of it will be soon, but not all of it. In fact, the first chapter of the new book in progress, Dark Frontiers, Cry of the Wendigo, the first chapter, I think it's actually the first 2 chapters, is available already for people to read.
DA mentions his alpha readers as kind of his little inner circle that initially reads his books. The Patreon are the beta readers. They're the next in line. And so you're a valuable part of the process, and you're a trusted resource.
I get a lot of feedback from the Patreon, and it does help. It helps a lot. Boys, we are a 2.5 hour mark on episode 250 with over 7,500 subscribers now, and we couldn't have done it without you folks. Thank you guys so much for everything. Thank you guys for making this show what it is, and for being part of the family here. We have a good time. We enjoy talking. Yeah, we get off the rails and we completely forget the topic we're supposed to be talking about from time to time. But I think that's kind of what makes this what it is. It's not just a structured question and answer kind of thing like you would find on any cable news show. It's more just us being us. Yes, we discuss the topics, but we talk about other things. We laugh. We have a good time. We share a bit of ourselves with you guys, and you guys have shared quite a bit with us as well. So, I like to think of this. We've said many times we don't have fans, we have friends, and we're damn happy to have all of y'all as our friends. Since we're starting to wind her down, I want to mention the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and Demons 1 and 2 is kind of a nod at that, because you see a darker side of Margolin you don't ever see. Margolin's dealing with his own demons, and those men and women that have put it on the line, either as first responders or veterans. Sometimes they have to set up with the demons, and unfortunately, at least 22 times a day, those demons win. So check out the Till Valhalla Project. They are a huge supporter of the 22 a Day Foundation. Everything they bring in goes back to help veterans, goes into veterans charities. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. Mental health is a subject that it needs to be talked about. We need to be embracing that and not stigmatizing it. For years as a cop, whenever I would have trouble, I would just bottle it up. When I would have trouble dealing with anything, it was because I was too proud to admit I needed help on something. And we, all of us are guilty of that. But when you get into career paths where you kind of bring out the machismo in people, where it's that, I'm a warrior, I'm the first line of defense, you don't want to show weakness, especially to other warriors. And it's very hard to reach out and make that first step and say, hey, I need help. So take that step for them. Reach out to your first responder friends, your veteran friends, and say, hey, I'm here if you need to talk. Or even if you don't, even if you just want to sit on the back porch, have a beer, and bitch about politics, just having somebody to just be next to and talk to. Some of the best conversations I ever had with my dad before he passed, we didn't say a damn word. We just have a cup of coffee and sit. So sometimes that's all you need.
Sometimes all it takes, everybody fights the darkness. Those of you who have been members of the show for a long time know I had my own mental health struggles over the years. And I've been very candid about it, and I've had people help me through it. All it takes sometimes is that 3 a.m. You all right, fucker? Text, and that puts it together. I always tell my friends when they're fighting the darkness and the darkness is starting to win, I tell them, I am shit for advice, but I'm a good bartender. I'm a great listener. And sometimes that's all it takes. Just being there, knowing that somebody knows that you're fighting the darkness and you're struggling. And, we are very close. We are not subscribers versus content creators or whatever the fuck the terminology is for what we do here. We're family. As DA says, it's a journey we take together. And, we're there for each other. And some of those folks are no longer with us. Some are still here. We're blessed to have them. Just be good to each other.
Exactly. Kimber 1911 fan says, DA, when do you think your next book will be out? A novel length compilation of short stories should be out later this month, with at least one novel following close behind it. I'm trying to catch up on some of the writing that I got behind on when I was in the hospital. So look for a lot of releases coming over the next few months. Hopefully I'll have 4 or 5 releases by end of summer. So keep your fingers crossed for me. Hopefully things keep going the way they're going. But we've been ending the show with a toast. It's kind of a tradition we started, and it's one I hope to continue for a good long time. Like Steve was saying, that there are those that have gone before that we just don't get to be with anymore. And that's where this toast comes from. There's a song called The Parting Glass. It's an old Irish drinking song, and it's usually played at the end of the day when the bar is closing and people are taking their last drinks before they go home. But when you read the lyrics, when you listen to the song and feel the words, you understand that it's not just talking about raising a glass for the people that you're not going to see until the bar opens tomorrow. It's talking about raising for a glass for those who aren't there anymore to raise the glass with you. It's talking about raising a glass and saying goodbye. And I have a quote from that I will end the show with. And let me bring that up unless Noah beats me to it, so you guys can read along with me.
Those damn moderators are too good at their jobs.
But the quote says, But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.